No, I'm.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 21st Walsh County Commissioner meeting. Just a reminder that our meetings are on YouTube Live. So if you could just get my attention before you proceed, so that we aren't speaking over each other. All right, with that, I'll take additions to the agenda. Denny?
Yeah, I've got an update from Brad, in the fair building on House Bill 1591.
1590?
1591.
Okay. Amy?
Nothing.
Paul?
Nothing today.
Ernie?
Just an update on the highway department. Yeah, Paul and I went over to Park River. We had a meeting with the foreman and Jason.
Okay. Christie?
Yes, I have a few. I need to add approval of the portfolios for 2025. Approval of paying bills on demand. An update on the court facility improvement grant. As well as an update on the deputy auditor 2 position.
None, myself, I don't have anything, so. Okay, with that, everyone was provided the January 7th, 2025 regular meeting minutes to review, and the monthly bills have been reviewed as well. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, employee time. And I believe we have Bailey here this morning for employee time.
Yes,
Come on up.
Bailey Schrader, I am the new Ag and Natural Resource Agent up in Walsh County. I've been here just over a month. I started on December 9th. So I just wanted to come and introduce myself to all of you guys. I know a couple familiar faces, you know who I am. But I'm looking forward to working with you guys and just give me a call at the office and we can visit. So any questions for me at all?
Well, first of all, we're just very happy to have you. Welcome. I think you'll do well in the position.
Thank you.
And how many times have you heard the new Brad? You're the new Brad.
I have, sometimes I catch myself saying that to you. But yeah, it's going good, so happy to be here, so.
Don't be afraid to reach out to us too.
Yeah.
Concerns. I think I've got the portfolio for the extension,
Okay.
so.
We hope you stay as long as Brad did.
Yes, that's the plan,
Yeah, you have a good foundation.
yes,
4-H kid, many years. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
so,
looking forward to working with you.
thank you guys.
Thanks for coming. Okay, is anyone else here for employee time? Okay, Ed, can we go ahead and jump to you or?
Yeah. Morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Got a couple things today. The first, there's a couple of abatements to go through. The first one on my pile is from the Rottenham Able American Legion Club in the city of Fordville. They filed an abatement for the 2023 and 2024 tax years. They feel the parcel should be exempt from real estate taxation. They did submit a property tax exemption application stating that the property is owned by a nonprofit club. They no longer are selling any food or beverages out of there. I believe that's why it had been taxable in the past, as somebody had been renting it out and selling food. They did not notify our office till now that that was no longer happening. So reviewed the property. And I believe that it does qualify for the exemption for the 2023 and 2024 tax years. So City of Fordville did approve this abatement application. I recommend that the Walsh County Commission approve a motion to reduce the true and full value of this parcel to 0 for the 2023 and 2024 tax years.
Do I have a motion? Oh,
I'll make a motion to approve. The abatement.
a second? Okay, any discussion? And with that, I'll take roll. Denny,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carried.
All right. The second one I had was for Ryan Evertowski for a residential property in Minto. He's filing an abatement for the 2024 tax year. Because the house on this property was destroyed by fire in April 2024. The original true and full value was 86,000. As I mentioned, the house was destroyed on this parcel, however, there is still remaining a 26 by 42 garage. So the garage value would stay in full for the full year. And the house value can be prorated for the 4 months before it was destroyed. Enclosure A is my calculations to prorate the house value. And it came to a structure value of $32,570. The city of Minto approved this abatement. And I would recommend that the Welsh County Commission approve a motion to reduce the true and full value of this parcel to a land value of $8,290, which is unchanged. Structure value of $32,570 for total true and full value of $40,860.
I'll make a motion, we approve this abatement.
Any further discussion?
And can I just ask, I don't know if he plans to put another house, but how does that work as far as if that changes? Is it his responsibility to let, you know, if a house goes on?
The city of Minto requires building permits.
Sure.
So, yes, I will. I talked to him and he hopes to put a house there someday, just doesn't know when yet. But I will definitely be notified. Gotta keep an eye on it anyway,
Yeah.
on my yearly duties.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'll take roll. Paul,
Yes.
Ernie.
Yes.
Denny,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carried.
All right, then the third and final
Oh,
abatement.
excuse me, Denny.
The TV was just gonna shut off, I just
Oh,
didn't know if we needed to keep that alive or not.
we're okay.
Jason's got it.
Okay.
Okay.
We're open.
Thank you, though. Appreciate that. We might need some help today with that. Okay, go ahead, Ed.
All right, so the last one is an abatement from the Central Valley Bean Cooperative in Peasic. They filed abatement for the 2024 tax year. They informed me that they demolished the remaining grain elevator structures that were on this parcel sometime in 2023. And they requested that the structure value be reduced by $17,750 to reflect the structures no longer being there. The previous local assessor for the city of Peasic was not notified that the structures were removed and did not notice that, so for 2024, they did not reduce the true and full value on this parcel. All the structure values on this parcel were last reviewed by our office in 2020. And at that time, enclosure A showed the calculated value of the structures that still remain on the parcel. This amounted to $129,844 at that time. The value of the old grain elevator at the time was and still is difficult to determine because of its age, condition, and functional obsolescence. So all parties back in 2020 agreed to a value of $25,000 for those elevator structures. So the requested reduction is less than that amount that we agreed to at the time. So if this abatement is approved, the remaining structure value would still be higher than what we calculated back in 2020 for the remaining structures. So I feel that is still a fair and equitable value, and our office will be doing the assessing for Peasic starting in 2025, so I will review that property further starting in 2025. The city of Peasic did approve this abatement application. And I also recommend that the Welsh County Commission approve a motion to reduce the true and full value of this parcel to a land value of $21,000, which is unchanged. A new structure value of $145,000 for a total true and full value of $166,000.
I'd make a motion to approve the abatement.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll take roll. Amy,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
Danny,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carried.
All right, the other thing on my agenda was just an update on, mobile home removal in RDOC. I gave everybody a copy of an email response I got from JR and the state's attorney's office. And he does not believe there's anything in Century Code that would allow us to assess the removal costs to the landowner, so. Was there any other comments or questions on that for me at this time?
It's just disappointing.
Yeah,
Bite the bullet.
so he did,
What if we don't remove it?
You want that liability? We talked about that.
I don't like to see, like, just. In the end, it kind of just turns into junk sitting around. I mean, we want other people to clean up their properties. I feel we have the same responsibility. Amy,
It just rubs me wrong, but we gotta clean up somebody else's property.
I agree. Amy,
One thing I'm hopeful for, even with the new rural caucus and legislation too, is that was some discussion that's has been on smaller communities being able to keep up on all levels, and I think blight is one of them, you know, I mean, I look at it as there is a responsibility we have there, but there's also a piece where it's like, we're setting precedents of Adams and now, you know, in all these places, and it just feels like it's not gonna stop. So I think it's a hope right now, but there is a little bit of recognition to just be able to be part of what is our responsibility, but maybe not all financially, I don't know.
mhm. It's hard to watch it fall on the backs of our taxpayers,
When the land underneath it is owned by someone.
someone else. That's very difficult. But. It's the rules for now, right?
that's my understanding. I guess you guys have the choice whether you want to have us pursue removing it or not. If that's what you still choose, I would send a certified letter to the landowner requesting permission to go and have the highway department remove it. That'll be the next step.
I think we already made that decision. didn't we?
I feel like we did too. So unless there's opposition, I guess we stick with our decision. Proceed.
All right,
Thank you, Ed.
thank you. Last thing I was gonna add today is, I was asked to be on the legislative committee for our Assessors Association this year. Good year to join that battle. But if anybody has any questions, thoughts, concerns on any of the property tax related bills, don't hesitate to reach out to me and I can fill you in on what our discussions have been and if there's any testimony coming from our association. So just wanted to let everybody know.
I'm assuming it's all over the place right now.
There is a little bit of everything out there, yes. And there's more coming, I think.
Really?
Ernie,
Ed, are you following the potato rails deal too?
Yes,
You're still gonna be involved and testify if you have to or whatever?
not sure. I'll be honest, I'm growing a little leery of that one because nobody else seems to care other than us,
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
until they lose the taxes. I don't care.
I did email, so that everybody knows, I did email the committee, the Senate Committee, Finance and Tax Committee about that bill. Against that bill, basically removing egg storage facilities within a city from the tax rolls. I know this commission in the last session opposed it.
Mhm.
It's, you know, it's on the Senate side now. If it goes to the House side, I think we should do the same thing and oppose it. On the House side. I don't know if it passed the Senate last session, I believe. I kind of expect it to this time. I think they're having a hearing right now. On committee work anyways. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I should say, I did make a recommendation to the committee that they allow, if they're going to pass this legislation, that they allow the cities to opt in. That's how they do the daycare exemption. If a city wants to adopt the state exemption for daycares, the city can adopt it. So each city could determine if they want to exempt these properties or not, and to me, that's
Mhm.
the best local control, that's the best answer, because each city has a different situation. I don't know if that'll go anywhere, but to me, it's a good idea.
So Paul, you'll keep us posted or let us know if you need that or.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you reached out. Your background is vital in
Yeah,
I will add that not only the daycare exemption is an opt-in thing, so is the new single family exemption, the builder's exemption, there's several of these exemptions that are allowed by century code that specifically say the cities or the taxing jurisdiction can approve by a local resolution and opt in. And I think that would be a feasible solution to this one as well.
Sure sounds like it.
I've kind of stayed out of this one up until now, but it seems like everybody's getting worn out, so
What's gonna happen now with that new deal in Grand Forks, and all of a sudden there's gonna be more potato, acres? Is there gonna be more potato warehouses built in these towns, and they're gonna bite the bullet? Provide the infrastructure and the water and everything else and get no tax out of it.
There was one gentleman that testified down in Oaks. It's made the same exact comment, but this facility coming up, there's gonna be more people looking to grow potatoes, eventually build in their cities.
Yeah.
He's looking at it the perspective of if they were exempt, it was for growth in the cities, so.
More to come.
Yes, there will.
Keep us posted, please.
Okay, yep,
Thank you, Ed.
thank you.
Okay, good morning, Brent. We're a little bit ahead, but you don't mind?
No,
You can come up?
Just a couple items here. First of all, I don't remember exactly when, late last summer, early fall, you guys appointed Kent Matachek for the weed board. And when we had our December meeting, we decided that we would like to get him reappointed to start January 1st, so that they don't have two of them coming off in the same year. Since it's only, we've been down to 3 people.
Mhm.
Otherwise, there'd be 2 of them coming off in the same year, and since he was a new one, we just are asking to have him reappointed beginning this January 1st, and then that way we avoid 2 of them coming off at one time.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to appoint Kent January 1st, 2025 for
It's a
a
4-year.
4-year term.
second,
any discussion? Okay, I'll take roll. Denny,
yes,
Amy,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
Paul,
yes,
yeah, myself, yes, motion carried.
Okay, the next item, floodplain management, no more confusing, so, so I don't know if you remember that, well, it's been probably a year and a half ago now, all these townships were told that they weren't included in the county's floodplain. They had us go out, we had to get resolutions from them saying they were participating. So we went through all that process, then 5 months, 4 months ago, whatever, then they decided that those resolutions probably weren't good enough, they wanted different resolutions. So now there's legislation in the system this year that, I think I sent you a copy of the legislative bill that basically says that all of the townships are underneath the county for floodplain management unless they decide they can opt out instead of us making them opt in. So I'm wondering what you think I should do or what I should be doing with them. At the moment, I have not reached out to all of them to do new resolutions and all of these other things that they thought they needed to do. Because I knew this legislation was potentially coming and I wanted to see how it was written before and whether it'll pass or not, I don't know, but. So so I'm trying to decide whether I go through the hassle of trying to get all these townships to sign the new resolution that they think they should sign, that was a little bit, remember I brought up those 3 different. There were like 3 different resolutions that said that they opted in, but they were gonna keep their own zoning, or they were keeping everything to themselves, or they were just all of these. which I think is very confusing, that's just gonna confuse most of them as to which one they're supposed to sign or not sign. So I'm hoping the legislation will go through and they'll all be included, because I don't know that any of them wanna do it themselves anyway. So with that said, there's, they call it the FEMA Community Status Book, which tells you which townships or which cities or which counties are participating in floodplain. So for Walsh County, we currently have 12 that are listed as non-participating. Of those 12, 4 of them are also listed on the list as participating. Just make sure that everything's confusing. And then we have 2 that are participating as individual townships, not under the county, according to the FEMA rules, even though as long as I've ever been here, we've done it for those 2 townships along with everybody else. And then we have 2 townships that are not on the list at all. And I'm assuming those are probably because they don't have any identified floodplain within those township boundaries. So of the four, oh yeah, so we have four on the list that are participating that I never got a signed resolution from, so I don't know why they're considered participating, because on the non-participating list, we have 3 that did give a resolution
Oh, for crying out
that was sent in.
Anybody keeping track of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mixed up already.
Apparently not.
So I mean, it's kind of all over the board right now. So I don't know if me going around and, you know, trying to get a bunch of resolutions from these townships in the next month or 2 here, and then in March have the state change the rules again.
Can we just wait for the
Yeah.
legislation and see what happens?
And the only problem with waiting is, I don't know where they're gonna fall, if like, so at the end of February, first part of March, if the state hasn't adopted this, and all of a sudden somebody in one of these townships that aren't participating has somebody who wants flood insurance, I don't know if they'll be able to get it.
So how many do you have that are not participating?
So there are 12 listed as not participating, but of those 12, 4 of them are also listed on the participating list, so I don't really know where they're.
Okay, so we have 8.
8 for sure that
For
are
sure.
listed as
Can you
not.
reach out to those 8 townships?
And of those
possibly?
8, 5 of them never gave me resolutions last time, I mean, I reached out to
Well,
them
then that's their
multiple
choice, I
times.
guess. So how about 3? Now we're down to 3.
So the other 3 I have resolutions from, so I don't know why they're not showing as participating, I can resend them
I
back
would
into the.
resend those, get them on the list and. Paul,
What exactly is this Senate Bill 2027? Is that part of this?
So is that the one I sent you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Senate Bill 2027, yep, so this is the bill that was introduced that would basically put all the townships under the county for floodplain management automatically.
They can opt out.
And then if they want to do it themselves, they can opt out and set up their own ordinance and their own floodplain.
Okay. Which is just the opposite of the way it's been historically.
Well, historically, they were all underneath the township until about a year and a half ago, then FEMA decided that, well, no, they're technically not under the county, so, I mean, historically, they've been, I mean, for as long as I've been here, they've always been under the county. A year and a half ago, FEMA decided that that wasn't good enough, that they all had to opt in to be with the county, or they had to all get their own ordinance and sign up for floodplain and.
Okay, and you have paperwork that you've offered this to these townships.
Correct, they've all been offered
They
to
either,
sign a resolution,
they've either.
and they've all signed up other than 1, 2, yeah, I have 5 left that never signed, and I mean, I've tried contacting them multiple times,
So you've done what you can do.
but yes. The only thing is that after we did all this and we sent all this in, then FEMA didn't know if that resolution was good enough. Cause then they came up with all these other options that they thought everybody should sign and do, and then it kind of came out during harvest time, so I wasn't gonna send it all to them at harvest time, and then I heard rumors that this bill was gonna come out, so then I was kind of waiting to see what the bill said.
Might be seeing some changes in FEMA here in the coming months.
Yeah, so I'm,
do you feel comfortable with just making sure those 3 counties that are not on the list, get on the list, since they did say they wanted to opt in, right?
and so,
And then just waiting till March, until we see what happens with legislation?
yeah, we can, I mean, we can go that route and see how it plays out.
Do you have a better recommendation?
No, not at
Okay.
the moment. I don't, cause I never liked all that resolution thing where you're basically sending them 3 different resolutions and they gotta figure out which one they're gonna sign and which one they're going to, and I mean, it's just.
Amy,
And it doesn't sound like it was to help, it sounded like it muddled the waters more with the amount of choices, and I mean, for your lay people that are just like, what are you sending me, what do we?
Well,
need
yeah,
to do?
I mean, and that was, I mean, it just. I mean, it took me, 6 months or better just to get the simple resolution we sent to them back from
right,
the majority of them.
So this is, the bill is essentially, if passed, we'll go back to what it was.
Right, basically we'll put all of the townships under the county, and then if one of the townships doesn't want to participate
they
or wants to do their own, they can request that.
okay. Is everybody in agreement that we just have them get those 2 counties on the list and go from there, wait for legislation? Okay, I don't think we don't need a motion or anything, you're not looking for anything like that, are you?
No, I'm just looking for
For direction,
some direction, if that's what you would like me to stay with, I can.
Yeah.
Do what we can to make sure as many are
I just wanna make sure.
available, and the other part that goes with that is that, unless somebody is forced to carry flood insurance because of their home mortgage, there isn't a lot of it out in,
Mhm,
most of them aren't carrying the flood insurance unless they're required to.
right. Okay,
I mean, there are ones that carry it, but I mean, for the majority of them, they're not, most of the ones in the floodplain aren't carrying flood insurance.
okay,
It's not necessarily a good thing, but that's just the way it is.
what it is, okay, their choice,
So then just one other thing, and this doesn't have to be decided today either, but it's, the other thing I sent you was like a newsletter that came from the state, but within that newsletter is that HUD made a ruling that basically says anybody that's building new or doing, improvements, that's looking for an FHA loan are supposed to be at a minimum of 2 feet above the base flood elevation. Our ordinance says 1 foot. And pretty much everybody in the state says 1 foot. So the state and FEMA has come out and said that you do not have to change your ordinance, they're not requiring anybody to change their ordinance. But that is an option, if you wanna make your standard 2 foot. And if not, then they're encouraging you to make sure that people are aware of that, because you may not be eligible for that FHA loan if you're not meeting the requirements.
from what I saw when I left FSA and USDA. Nobody hardly got an FHA loan. They were like non-existent unless it's something different, but do you?
No, this is just federal housing
Yeah,
administration loan
yeah.
for,
The-
home.
That program just kind of was
This is
so.
why, this is one of the reasons why.
The
paper.
regulations were so strict that you couldn't. So,
So, okay, so just leave that as is at the moment. Yeah.
I don't think we
Okay.
want to be changing our
No.
rules to match
Okay.
FHA, definitely not.
Nope, so I'll just make sure that if it is new construction, that if they're coming to get a permit, they're aware of that regulation, they can decide, I mean,
Right,
in order to meet the rules, they would only have to be 1 foot, but
if they're
they
doing
can
that.
opt to do 2 foot if they want,
Okay,
or, I mean, they can always do more than 1 foot,
right,
but make sure that they know that that exists out there.
okay, good,
Okay, so the last item I have is, our multi-hazard mitigation plan is due to be renewed in, August of 26th is when it expires, it's every 5 years.
Yeah.
But it usually takes a year and a half to get it redone and upgraded, and we are required to have one in order to be eligible for certain mitigation funding and grants.
Mhm.
So as part of that is we can, apply into what they call this BRIC grant for getting contractors to write it. The county shares 25%. I'm just looking for permission to provide or to apply for the grant and see if we can get it. That's probably $20,000 to $25,000 for a contractor to do this process for you. That's normally where it falls in someplace, and then, so our cost would be roughly $6,000, give or take, and in the past, that's all basically been in-kind money, so it really hasn't cost us anything. As long as we document our public meetings and attendees and count people's time and stuff, then usually it hasn't. Other years we've done it, it hasn't cost us anything, otherwise, it'll be very minimal.
So you're saying in the past we have hired someone to do
Contractors,
this, a
yes.
contractor, okay.
Yeah, in the years I've been here, 1 year we wrote it ourselves, and then they started doing these grant things where really, it just.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay for us to commit all of our time to when we can hire through a grant to do this, so.
Amy?
So that was my question, is you've been through this grant process before, and so you kind of know the realm, you don't need it in your budget per se, I was gonna ask you, how did your
Well, it
budget?
wouldn't be, so we would have to budget for it, you know, in 26
Okay,
to basically pay the bill, but then the bill would be reimbursed by the grant, you know, so it would have to be it would have to be a line item in one of my budgets in order to, I mean, we have to pay the original bill, but then that would be reimbursed by a grant, so.
Basically a flow through.
Right, yep, just to basically a pass through.
So are you looking for a motion at this time, or?
I guess I don't know if I need a
direction?
motion, I'm just looking for, I guess, it was okay to go through the process, and then once the grant is awarded, then you'd have to move to accept it, so
Okay.
later on, but as long as nobody has any concerns, I'll go through the steps of getting that far anyway. I mean, there's no
I think
guarantee
if
that,
it's,
I guess, there's no guarantee that we'll get the grant, but I
Right,
mean,
I think let's try, and if it's what we've been doing in the past, let's continue.
continue to go that route, that's okay.
Everybody okay with that?
That's all I was looking for, I guess, today.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you.
Yep.
thanks, Brent.
Okay, we're a little ahead, so should we pick up on some of these items, extras? Okay. Start with Denny. Do you want to give us the House Bill 1591 update?
Yeah, got a call from Brad last night, and that's, Bill 1591 is. It's the enacted by the Legislative Assembly appropriation from Agriculture Commission County Fair Resiliency Grant Program, one-time funding of up to $100,000 for infrastructure projects, planning and designing only. And they originally thought it was gonna be quite a bit more money, but it already got shot down from 2 million to 100,000. It's just a bill that's coming up, and it might be available if it gets passed, so. I just, he wanted me to bring it up so everybody's aware of it.
So for planning and designing a new building.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay, then let's go to Highway Department update. Thank you, Denny.
Christie,
Oh,
can I interrupt
Yeah.
just a second? Christie, just a reminder that for that grant, I need you to get me on that,
It's on my list.
on
Yes.
your, yes, I need approval to get into that system. So,
Okay, I will do that.
thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
okay, thanks, Brent. Okay, Ernie, Highway Department update?
Paul and I met with the highway department and some of the shop owners over there. And I mean, we talked about changing routes for snow roads and making it simpler and stuff like that. And then we got on the topic of trucks. And Ryan's was in there that day, they got it fixed, and here last week, now we got another one that his is back in there. And I just wanted to bring this, I was sort of shocked when I saw this, cause I don't keep track of all of our equipment and how old it is. I know Paul, his eyeballs just about popped out when we saw it. And I just wanted you guys to make aware that even if we don't have money in our budget sometimes with our general fund or anything else, we're gonna have to start replacing some of these. If you look at this list, and I did it, the two newest ones are 21s. Then we go down to a 14, 12, 2006, 2004, 2003, 2000, 99, couple of 97s, 95s and 92. So they're aging, and it's just costing us so much money to, huh?
89?
289.
There's an 83, that's an international 2.5, I don't know, you use that for pulling a trailer. So, I mean, you look at the age of that, and you know, of all the years that I've been here, we've seen like we've never had really any kind of money to do anything with our trucks. Cause whether it's a road or a bridge or, you know, our snow plows and all that, so I'm just thinking in the future. And it's a good time before budgets, take a look at this list, and I seriously, and it's sad to say, they're what, 350,000 new, and what are they gonna be in the future? I think we gotta start plucking one or two every once in a while and start replacing some of this stuff. It's just getting costly, and some of these older ones, we can't find parts or fix them. So I just wanted to make you aware of this, because I know we're gonna be talking about this at budget time. And I don't know, it's something maybe, I'll take a blame, I've been a commissioner here the longest. We just never seemed to, because Christie asked me the other day when we were talking, and she says, you never read, and I said, we've never had extra really money to spend on a truck. We've always bought used or tried to upgrade or anything else, and the pool out there is, everybody holds on to them, they out there, you get in trouble, so we pound on one and then we get in trouble. So just think on this, that's the only reason I brought it up, I don't know, Paul, if you wanna add on it, but it's a telling story to see the age of our trucks.
I don't have a lot to add. I was kind of stunned by the age of a lot of this fleet. It is concerning, and I think moving forward, I think we have to come up with some kind of a rotation plan. And this is just an example, there's probably other departments with the same equipment issues, or the highway department probably has the same issues with other types of equipment, but my point is, I think we need to keep an eye on the equipment and, see if we can try to do better.
I'm all for a proactive plan. I mean, Paul and I have talked even a little bit about just even other departments when it comes to pickups and being a little more proactive with some of this to say, I'm not a proponent of hanging on as long as we can and now having to fix something that has not much value versus when is time to move forward and make smarter decisions when it comes to that. But yeah, we're gonna have to start somewhere and then just proactively, if it's a rotating, and be great if it could be with other departments too, like we've said, pickups and other, so that there is a plan and it's not just, okay, it doesn't work. We start from scratch versus is this the time that we move forward and find something else new or used to replace, so.
Well, I think since I've been here in the portfolio, years back, we'd have maybe one semi, well, now we go to these side dumps. So now you got more semis, now you got how many tandems that are 3.5 ton, you got a couple that are 2.5 ton and stuff, and like I said, last year, thank God we got Logan and a couple of those guys that could patch the work on the boxes, you could see right through the boxes and stuff. So it's a telling deal, and I gotta commend our guys, Stuart and all them, I think they've done a heck of a job keeping this fleet moving as old as it is. But there's a time comes that, what, we gotta really, and I agree, Amy, maybe look 5 years or do something like we do with our blades. Every 2 years, we replace a couple trucks, or every 3 years or something, but I think it's something we really gotta look at.
I agree. Any other discussion? Okay. Be nice to see an inventory plan and keep it rotating. Okay, portfolio approval. You get that one done as well. 2025 portfolio approval.
So since there were so many changes, we did not have a motion to approve the portfolios. So I did send a list out to everybody to review. And I guess I'm just looking for a motion, to approve the portfolio that's presented for the 2025 year.
Did everyone have a chance to review them? Okay,
I would move to approve the portfolio list.
I'll second it.
okay, any discussion?
You'll give us a copy once.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I'll take roll. Denny,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carried.
you're stuck.
And then do you send them all to the department heads and?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right, sounds good, thank you. Okay,
Along with that, I went to the planning or housing authority last week, I told them Paul was gonna be on there, so I don't know if you wanna send them a letter or make it official or whatever, but they know. Yeah.
Okay.
I know the library board is aware that I'm on too, maybe sent them.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, it's 9:40. Tanya's here, so we'll start with you, Tanya.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I sent you guys a couple of things. We'll start with the easiest thing first with the policy change. We have the second reading of our inclement weather policy. You may recall that the only change really we made is how the process that we follow to close the county offices, right? So it's, and I don't think I said this along in the packets, I apologize. I don't think I remembered to do that. It was such a simple change. It just says in the event of hazardous weather, the sheriff or his designee may delay the opening or close the county offices. So we just were making it clear that that's the sheriff's call. And it does say that he will notify the chair or vice chair if he's going to do it, but there is no other consent required on behalf of the chair. So We had the first reading last month, so this is the second reading of that policy.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
for the second,
Second,
right, any discussion? Okay, I'll take roll, Amy,
Yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes,
Paul,
yes,
myself, yes, motion carried.
The other thing I'm bringing to you today is related to the Andy PERS retirement plan. You're all, I'm sure, aware of the Andy PERS plan. I tried to spell this out in what I thought was kind of a simple format, and maybe it wasn't very simple. Christy had called me yesterday asking for some clarification, so I'm here to answer questions to the best of my ability. We're all still trying to grapple with this, to be honest, and wrap our heads around it. It rolled out January 1, but from my understanding, and Christy knows more about this part of it, we're not doing anything with it payroll wise until the February payroll. So other counties, I'm finding, aren't acting super quickly either in making decisions related to this. There was an HR group email that went around like a week or two ago saying, what's everybody doing for PERS? And only 3 counties responded. And that's the 3 that I listed on the bottom. Those 3 are essentially doing the same thing that they've done for all of their other employees, right? They're not changing their contribution. So the plan has changed, but they're still saying our employees are kicking in the same amount that the grandfathered in employees are kicking in. So in our case, that's 3%. In those other counties I listed at the bottom, it's different percents, but that's the case, you know, statewide, every county does their own thing. So we previously chose to pick up a portion of the employee share. And it was at the top, you'll see that the designated employee share on the old plan was that it was the defined benefit plan was 7%, but we were actually only having them kick in 3% of that. And so that's what the top part spells out. The bottom part spells out that if we were to do that, it's still with the new plan, if we just have them kick in the same 3%, it tells you what our responsibility would be. Under the new plan, it's 6.26%, that's the yellow part. Beneath that, I didn't put it in yellow, but there's an optional addition that employees can choose to add on in this new plan. So it's a total of 9.26%. If they so choose, they can add up to another 3%. It's not all or nothing, they can do 1, 2, or 3%. We are required to match whatever they're adding, okay? So if they did the max that they could, and we matched that 3%, making it 6, our maximum contribution as a county is gonna be 9.26%. You'll see that down there. So, and Chrissy, we never really touch base again, but that's my understanding. I don't know if you had any comments or questions about it either, but that was my understanding of how this new plan will work. So essentially, I just wanted, Christy and I had spoken about, we needed to come to you because the plan itself has changed. Do we need to discuss it here at the commission level? Are you going to change your approach in terms of what employees are required to contribute? I have a benefits, summary sheet that we use when we're hiring, and so I need to update that sheet so we can tell employees what we're offering, so. And it won't take effect until we take payroll, but. Oh,
I'm confused.
okay.
So the way I read this.
Yeah.
We're putting in 5.26% as an employer's share. The employee is putting in 4%.
That's how the plan is set up, so they designate an employer share and an employee share. And that's how the old plan was set up as well, if you see in the first column, 9.26 and 7. We as a county, as part of an employee retention and benefit thing, said, we're picking up a little bit of your employee share. That's what we had done previously. That's why they only have put in 3%, even though the plan said their share is 7%.
So the county paid 4% of the employee share.
Correct. Yep,
I don't know how you're settling on the 9.26 though, because to me,
Okay.
you're at 9.26 on the top. And then you're at 9.26 down here. To me, it would be 9.26 and 12.26 if the employee puts in the extra 3%.
I'm just talking about the employee or employer share. Our maximum contribution is 9.26.
Oh.
It would total 12.26, you're
Oh,
correct, okay? That's a great question, and I'm sorry for that confusion, yep. I was saying our max share.
Okay,
That makes sense now?
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Yep,
And so with that, so the 6.26 would come from us paying the 1% of the employee and the 5.26.
correct.
If the employee chooses to add 1, 2, or 3, that's where we have to match that. So right off the bat, if this person does not want to add any more to their 401k contribution, we would be just at the 6.26.
Correct.
And this is a one-time irrevocable lifetime
Yep. Decision for them.
decision for these employees. So it is crazy, and so they spun this off of, so this is an IRS requirement, for a public retirement, like it's a 401k plan for the private industry, so they will have a little bit more say on it, but yeah. Somebody starts 18 and they don't wanna put any money into their 401k and just do the minimum. They can't change it when they're 40 years old. It's crazy, so.
It must be chosen in that first month and it follows them. So if they choose to leave Walsh County employment and they go to Grand Forks County employment, that designation follows them. And so if that new employer's share is different than ours, you know, so if they're not going to put in as much, if they're not gonna pick up the percentage that we're picking up, the employee has to make up that difference. And Christy and I had talked about that. I don't know if we can necessarily let that have a ton of weight on our decision as to what we feel is best for Walsh County employees. But it's something for employees to be aware of if they're thinking that they are going to look at somewhere else to, you know, for a possible employer. But, yeah, it's a lot for everybody to be wrapping their heads around. I think statewide, there's a lot of questions, and I don't know if you've had further conversations, but I know Tyler, Grand Forks County, there was an email going around. They were trying to figure out how they were gonna make it work in the Tyler program, and I thought, I don't even, there's just a lot of little things that need to be figured out, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But we can pick up that additional 3% that they choose to contribute, right? So then we, you know, how we have, you have.
How we cover it.
How, yeah, so we're already covering the 1% of the required employee share. So technically, we could pick up that other 3% that they want to
matching.
increase, that they're matching. So then we'd be matching 2%. I think some of the counties are looking at that as well.
I think I couldn't get a definite clear answer on whether or not, because they call it optional.
Yeah,
And again, it follows them. So if that would make it a bigger difference if they go somewhere else. But nobody could answer that question clearly for me, because it's clear that if the employee chooses to do this, they add, then we match. But I think that there's some that are talking about covering, again, a piece of that share.
so they would be covering up to 7% of the employee's portion of their contribution. But it would be up to the employee to decide if they were going to do that, because I think that was the big discussion when we were at that conference, was that, you know, so there's 7% that we're gonna cover. That's gonna be required, so that's gonna be, what is that, 11% total going in. If they went somewhere else, they would still be required to put that in, even though that county isn't gonna put in
May
for
not
it.
put any.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I think everyone's kind of leery on what is the
That
best
sounds-
way
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that sounds like a heck of a retention tool to me,
to say.
for us,
To keep them
to
here.
keep them here, absolutely. I mean, if our county is willing to put that money into their retirement. And they say they wanna go to, let's say, Grand Forks County, and Grand Forks isn't matching as much. Kind of a retention tool for us to keep them.
the irony is that when they set this plan up, they build it as portability. That's
Easily,
right,
yeah.
one of the big reasons they said they wanted
It
to
is.
switch, because it was portable.
To me, it's just so crazy because at age 18 compared to age 40, even 30, you are in a whole different world as far as what you're thinking about or what you're willing to give up, or, you know, I mean, I would just hope we'd have that educational piece, you know, when I think of a financial advisor or investment, or even Tanya or someone with employees, so they do understand that clearly. It just, because I think that's absolutely ridiculous that that's lifetime, it's just.
When they're 18 and single, they're not
No.
even thinking about retirement.
Right? That's the last. thing
And then
I
it's gonna affect them when they're 50.
Yeah,
So if I'm understanding this right, our current employees. The employer share is 9.26 and the employee share is 7
correct.
for the defined benefit.
Yep, and we're picking up more than half of that employee share of that 7, right? Because they're only taking in 3. And I should clarify, this excludes the public safety plan. So we, a couple years ago, I don't remember, if anyone in this room remembers how long ago we did that, Ron, I remember.
Probably more like 5 or.
Wow, okay, it's
Yeah.
been more than a couple. We added the public safety plan, and so that is specifically for correctional officers and deputies. And they're a whole different plan still, and they're not part of this, so.
Okay, so currently then it's 13.26 and 3 is what the actual numbers are.
Yep, that's
For
shown on
for
the bottom.
Washington.
Yep.
And. Our biggest. Where did 6.26 come from? Was
So the
that just a
5
club
point-
number?
The 5.26 that is at the top. Up here, that's the plan design, and then if we can continue to let the employees contribute what they currently contribute. We're taking 1 of their 4%. Cause it's a total of 9.26, picking up 1% and adding it to ours, so that's 6.26.
So the employee contribution doesn't change, that's what you're trying to accomplish?
That's what I was showing you, yep. Simply but that doesn't mean you have to keep it that way, I was spelling that out for you because that's what seems to be what a lot of counties are looking at right now. Is keeping the employee contribution the same. Now, like Christie said, I didn't add the math in here for the optional additional percentage. But that's like for the total, on our share, we were gonna pick that up, but that's where that came from, yeah.
Well, we're still lower than our current employees, even with the optional 3%.
Because the plan is lower, yeah, it's a different, I mean, it's just not as, lucrative of a plan, to be honest, it's just not as. The percentages are lower and the plan design is totally different, so, yeah, we are still low.
I personally, I would like to see us continue to contribute what we have been.
Total then? Or,
No,
okay,
no, the
the.
one at the
keep
bottom, the
employee-
example you
keep
have at the bottom.
Yep, keep the employee contribution at 3%, we'll pick up 1% of theirs, so our total is 6.26. Right? If you want me to do further research, I don't know though, Christie, you should interrupt me if that's not. If you want me to see if I can get more information from others as to whether or not they're picking up any of the optional 6, I can do that. I just don't want it to hold you back with it. My understanding is that we're not having to put this all into payroll until February payroll, which is.
Yeah, so ND Pers is gonna do the education for the new employees. So on day 1, that's why it's gonna be very critical now that I find out on day 1 that an employee, even before that preferably,
Yeah.
that an employee is starting because, and I have to tell ND Per ASAP. And then they have 30 days to educate the new employee on what this all means. So they're taking that pressure off of our office. And they'll spell that all out to them. But I do know that there were some that were looking at
Picking up that optional.
that optional. So technically it would be, the max that the county would be putting in would be
12.26, yeah,
which is still 1%, but the employee has to approve that.
they have to agree to that.
Agree to it, yep, so then that first month of employment, they only are able to contribute the 5.26 and the 4, so the main plan, so that's how we get away with not dealing with it until February. So if we don't hire anyone in January, I actually have until March, but yeah, so the first month is of employment, they will have to do the 9.26.
Right,
It's any additional that will be then the next,
the second
the
month.
second month,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so.
Yes, Bernice.
So like you said, if they sign up when they're 18, it's gonna affect them till they're 40.
Yeah, it's a lifelong.
Is there anything in the wording that they can't change the plan on them then? I mean,
That
you're
person-
tying me up till I'm 40. Now, what happens if 20 years down the road? What happens if you all of a sudden say, well, no, I get to change this?
Right.
I don't think that's fair
suspect they-
either.
I would suspect they would do what they've done with the defined benefit plan. They would cut a date on the calendar and say you're grandfathered in as the plan is written
Okay,
today.
okay.
I suspect that's how they would handle that, just like they've handled, you know, anyone who was hired up through December 31st. They're on that old plan, right?
Okay,
I'm using the term old and new plan, but you know, just for ease of.
well, I just wanted to make sure there's some protection there.
Yeah, I agree. I suspect that's how they do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to repeat what I think you heard. If the employee adopts the 3%, we have to match the 3%, so we'd be at 12.26 versus on the old plan, we're at 13.26.
If we pick up that whole employee share is what Christie's saying, we'd be at 12.26. So right now, our max on the old plan
Is 9.26.
is 9.26, but because we're picking up half of their share, more than half, our total current contribution for any employees through December 31st is actually 13.26 right here. If we did the same thing with that optional 6 that they can add, and we say, we're gonna cover your share. If you want that extra percentage, we'll cover it for you, is what she's saying. If we did that, then our max would be capped at 12.26 instead of 9.26 like I put it here.
So what share would the employee pay out of that then?
They would still be at that 3.
So they'd only pay 3
Yep.
and we pay 12.
Yep,
Good deal.
That's a,
That's a pretty sweet
recruiting
deal.
tool. That's a big recruiting tool.
Mhm.
Cause when I worked at the hospital, I just remember when I came on, they had this and it, you just were like, why wouldn't you take advantage for how much you're getting when they're matching that?
it's, I
But
think
you're
this-
talking about matching the 3%. They pay 3, we pay 3.
Yeah, and that was even appealing. So I mean, to look at an opportunity and we're gonna provide, you know, and this isn't what I love about this is this isn't just here's our health insurance plan, we have a great one, believe us. This is we're investing in your future, like we have something to offer you that can impact you for a long time. That's only gonna improve morale, in my opinion, because they're not gonna go like, oh, the health insurance plan's changed, it's not as good. It's gonna be like, well, this is great now, this is great now, this is great. I mean, there's never gonna be a point that it's not a positive benefit.
You talk to any one of our employees that have retired, and they're just, yeah. That makes retirement.
There's no doubt about it. We have a phenomenal
Yeah.
retirement plans.
mhm.
And I guess if we have an option to keep it there, it's not going to cost us more
Correct,
than what we're currently paying.
correct. It's gonna be, even if you went to the max that you could give, keeping the employee contribution the same right now, we would still be less than what we're at for the others.
And I would rather us keep working, I know there's not as much we could do this year, but the health insurance side of things, you know, with how volatile that can be. I would rather we really focus on that and what is best, you know, for us as a county and for our employees, but not affect something that
Right.
we could keep as solid as possible. I mean, 1% difference is not, they're not gonna feel that as much.
So the only downfall I see to this, I just wanna make sure, the only downfall I see to it is on the employee's behalf, if they choose to leave, go to another county, and that county is not paying out as much as we paid out. Now that employee has to kick it in out of their own pocket. That's the only downfall I see, but is that our problem? Not really. I mean, to me, like I said, it's a retention tool to keep them here than have them go elsewhere, so.
And I would hope they would educate them on that, you know, and because so that if they are thinking of jumping ship soon,
Mhm.
they don't go for the full, you know, I mean, whereas. In my opinion, if we have people who are here and plan to be here till retirement, let's make it worth their while, so they hang on.
So we're going to need a motion, correct?
I think so, yep, this, yes.
So
So
can you
if-
word how the
Yeah,
motion
no,
would be?
So what I'm hearing is that the desire of the commission is to keep the employee contribution the same. And add the optional 6%, meaning in the end, the employee contribution would be 13.26. And then the max would be 9.26. And then the employee contribution would be 12.26. So that would be the max. 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 The employees would contribute 3%. The optional up to 6 would be added at the employee's consent, of which the county would cover in full, totaling 12.26 for the county.
Which is 1% less than.
Than what we're currently paying for all the employees hired up through December 31st. That would be optional, so it's gonna go, if we're gonna cover the full 6%, it's gonna go 2 by 2, right? So they can add 1%, which would equal 2, they could add 2%, which would go, et cetera, you know, so. Whatever they choose to add, we match it, but we're covering the full amount.
I would make a motion.
For that, Christy and I can work together.
Yeah, you guys work it out.
I'll second what she said.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I'll take roll. Ernie,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Sandy.
Yes.
Myself, yes, motion carried.
Okay, thank you.
There's your, why do you want to work in Walsh County?
Yeah. Exactly. I will make sure I spell it out well on the benefits summary.
Thank you, Tanya.
Yes, Tanya.
Appreciate it. Would we need a quick break before we go on to the sandwich group?
Yeah.
Okay, Ready? Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order, and with us this morning, we have Sid. I guess the last name is Sid?
Same as.
It is Samuel.
Yeah.
Sid Samuels of the Samuels Group. Okay.
I do my best to make it
present-
as easy as possible. Well, thanks for having me. This is, we're gonna present today on our findings in regards to what we have found over the last 2 years. It's been a process, right? And, but we're here and we're kind of at the tail end of our study and what we have found and, we've worked with the team pretty extensively over the last 2 years. So that today, our goal is to kind of talk a little bit about that history, what's happened since January of 2023. What we have found over time, talk about a couple of different scenarios. Really, the scenarios are, what's the recommendation? What happens if we continue doing what we do today? That's really what we're here to talk about, right? So we're really gonna talk about needs, solutions, costs. Where do we go from here? And I'll throw that all out on you. And you can ask some questions. Think about that a little bit. If you've got additional questions after the meeting, we're here to help you through that process too, because there's quite a bit of information. So the packet of information I handed out to you, one includes the PowerPoint presentation that we're gonna go through today. And behind that is a lot of backup data. So we talk about, for example, we talk about the Tom Weber study. That's included in the backup data so that you have that for your review. As we go through the PowerPoint, you'll see a lot of small numbers. I'd say we do that on purpose, but we really don't. There's just a lot of information in there. So we make sure that we've included the estimate. We've talked with your financial groups. So we've included some backup data in regards to the financial sides. And then the last thing that we have is discussing one of the scenarios. So we've put together a spreadsheet in regards to what that means. We've had to work with the sheriff, determine what the cost of transportation, things like that. And he's done a really good job of spelling out what that means. So I wanted to make sure that you had that data for you so that as we get done with the presentation, you can go back and refer to that if you choose to. All right? Are you ready?
Ready.
Good. So am I. So let's start with the project history. We really began in 2023. We came on board to do the initial study. We were working with Tom Weber. We had another architectural firm that we were working with. So the goal at the time was to review some sites. So we had 5 different sites from around the county. We had to talk with staff in regards to the existing facility, determined that the existing facility was in a position in which there would be so much cost to remove concrete floors because the plumbing was located within the floor. In addition to, as we start that construction, we have to bring that up to state standards, which means square footage costs or square footage that you don't have today. So there was an abundance amount of reconstruction that would take place that it really deemed it pretty difficult to continue to renovate that facility for the intended use. So with that said, Tom Weber went ahead and started interviewing staff to determine what a true jail count size would be over the next 20 years. So we've included that study in there. At the same time, we were looking at the locations. When we received the study, that gave us an idea in regards to square footage, so we'll talk about that a little bit, the architectural program. And then we went to estimating, and we've estimated this thing 7 different ways. So whether it's been on the high end of it, we've looked at solutions that have been on the low end of it. And unfortunately, as we continue to draw that down, we lose efficiency, we lost some square footage. So we went, reevaluated the floor plan again, and what you're going to see today is really what the committee has come to in regards to a floor plan that was acceptable to the sheriff's department. There's a cost associated with that, and we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. So the need, so Tom Weber, they went through, interviewed with staff, looked at records. I don't know how many Zoom meetings we had with Tom Weber, but there was quite a few. And we came up to a total need of roughly 48 beds, and when you look at that and you say, wait a minute, it's 48 beds, and what you need to understand in the world of corrections is that efficiency is ran on 80% of that number. So really what we're looking is about a 40 bed, and the reason why we say that is the way to classify inmates as they're coming into the jail or into the facility. Sometimes they fit, sometimes they don't, right? Because we have to have them in certain separations. We have women, we have men, we have all kinds of things that are going on in there. So to get to 100% capacity, it isn't saying that you can't do that. That means that everything's gonna fit perfect. So when we look at studies and we look at square footages, we really look at that 80% factor when we look at the total bed count. So that total bed count came up to 48 beds. With that, the architect had went through, we had walked through the existing sheriff's department, the existing jail, and looked at a solution of 37,685 feet. And you'll see that floor plan here shortly. When we looked at other sites, one of the things that became pretty obvious right away was the efficiency of transporting inmates back and forth to the courthouse. So we looked at the existing site and said, you know what, if we were able to demolish the existing jail and sheriff's department, that would create some parking in those areas and allow us to have an addition onto the courthouse. The courthouse has some needs as well, because we have an HVAC upgrade that we have to get to here shortly. And we said, you know what, if we're really looking at this as a whole project, let's utilize that money and utilize that opportunity to really create a centralized plant for both heating and for cooling. So that's really what led us to the design that we're going to see today. Any questions so far?
How big is the existing facility square footage wise?
I don't know. Do you, Ron, do you have that existing?
I can't remember.
I don't know, but we'll get that too.
I think it was originally designed as 23 beds or 24 beds at that in 1974, five. But due to the regulations from DOC, we've had to downsize to
16.
And that really comes down to that classification.
Yeah.
So the ability to classify the crime, right? If we have a violent crime or somebody that's created a violent crime, and we have people that have been involved with a crime, multiple people in one crime, you can't put them all in one cell and say they're okay, right? We have to separate them. There's a number of things that come to the county's level, which are predicated from the DOC. Okay. There's your solutions, so right, get that little clean floor plan. So the goal was, how could we incorporate those 48 beds, support those 48 beds, and then, is it working?
No, I don't think it's changing on the Zoom.
The Zoom is not showing your current slide.
No.
I'm hearing, so
It's a delay.
Well, it's on the first one still.
it's on the first slide is what it's showing. That's all.
Yeah,
Are you sharing?
We'll just take a minute for technical difficulties.
now it has, now matches.
What matches that when you
Just start.
Make sure I go back to the drawing, then we'll just pop forward to the next slide, and if that's the case.
Then we lose it.
Well, there it
Oh,
goes.
no,
There's a little
Okay.
bit, but it's there.
Just saying it matches now. So-
did not show.
not yet, but let's see. I know it was a little delay. We did notice that when we were playing around with it.
Does it look like it's working,
I'm
Tanya?
saying it's matching now. Jennifer is from Samuel's group is.
Okay,
Okay.
so on mine, it's just the first one still.
Well, no.
Maybe it's just that much delay.
Okay, think we're good?
Sure, yep.
Okay, tell her to let us know if something isn't working
Yeah.
again. Okay, and just feel free to interrupt. What was that?
It's good, I said.
Oh.
We said it's back to the first one.
Okay, good.
It is back to the first
Back to
one.
the first
Yeah,
one.
that's what I
So it's
thought.
not working.
If you got
not
a full
working.
screen, that seems to be when you
Yeah.
lost it.
Yeah, cause we're still on the not full screen.
Slides, and we'll just put it down the slide.
Yeah, run out to that, I guess. So seeing it this way?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, we still see it on the first slide.
See if I can. There we go.
Yep, it did turn before, but then it went back. There, now we have it on the floor plan.
Okay,
Now
now,
we have it on the floor plan.
she can see the floor plan.
Okay, I think we got it.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Treasurer's happy, we're happy.
There you go.
We're ready to go. I can see her off to the sites working at me, so I know better. All right, so as we had talked about the efficiencies of transporting the deputy rebuild off-site, for example. How would we get those inmates back down to court, bring them back to the jail? There's this constant, we'll call it the yo-yo effect, right? It's taking them out, taking staff, waiting, bringing them back. And so was there ability to look at the site, and that's where we came up with this solution of attaching it so that the inmates could be led to an elevator. So it took them out of the public, brought them up through the back, into the courtrooms. So it eliminates that crossing of victims versus, a potential criminal. And still be able to create an efficient back of house with the jail. The sheriff would be to the top of the screen or in the orange. The pink color is the jail itself. The purple would be the booking area or the intake, so as people are being arrested, they need to be processed. They're brought through the Sally Port, and then they are handled through the booking department, and then from there, they would end up in the jail. So that was roughly the floor plan, and from there, we were able to establish an estimate. Let me get into that. And what we did was put together a fairly generalistic breakdown based off, we built a number of county jails throughout the Midwest, so we've got quite a bit of current data. So what we do is break that up into divisions of work. And really what you guys want to see is the very bottom. And again, we've made it as small as we possibly can for you. It's what happens with PowerPoint, but roughly with that 36,000 and some 36,000 square feet came up to roughly $42 million, $42,635,000. That includes contingencies, that includes furniture, equipment. It also includes an inflation factor. And if you were able to blow that up, or if you guys can look on your sheets of paper, that's the second to the bottom line. And that's basically saying that if we were to approve to move forward, it was successful in a referendum, it would take time to design that. And in doing so, that would push off that construction until not this year, but into 26. So with that comes inflation. So we have updated this estimate. If you recall, for some of you, we did this estimate about a year ago. So you'll see a double up there in that inflation, but that's what's going on there, is that we're accounting for what's happening in front of us in regards to construction costs. Labor doesn't go down, continues to move upwards, and we have yet to find a year that it seemed like it's settled down in the construction industry for a while. So we're using a 5% inflation factor, which some people can say is too conservative, other people can say it's very aggressive. The reality is historically, we've seen about 4%, just only in the last 5 years. So if you look over time, that's been about the average. So we are using that 5% factor right now.
Sid, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So where it says escalation factor to 2026, 12%.
Yeah, he's added another year to that.
Okay,
So because we had done this estimate in 24, we added an escalator for 25. And then we re-upped the estimate, so all we did was add the percentage, so he's added it, I'm sorry, it's 6% escalation.
I was gonna say that,
Yeah.
yeah, that, okay, so
Yeah.
6% is what you
Yeah.
do, not 5, okay.
Mhm.
All
I
right,
put my
thank you.
glasses on, I was doing my best not to echo it. So we've talked about the need, and the solution, we put some pricing together for that. The next area is how the heck do we pay for something like that? Because if you were to go out and talk to your average person or most people, and you said you were gonna spend that kind of money, they look at you and say you're crazy, right? And we get it every day, so I don't know if we are truly crazy, but we need to break it down into some bite-sized pieces. So that's what we did, so we worked with your financial groups, and looked at potential solutions in regards to what it could potentially cost taxpayers. If they were to vote yes for, it becomes a two-part question, the way this is designed. Is there would be a property tax increase and then there could be a potential sales tax increase. And so we looked at this a couple of different ways. This was a solution, I'm sure there's plenty of other solutions in regards to how you compare your sales tax to property tax. But we looked at the evaluation based off $100,000 of evaluation, not necessarily what the market, and I'm sure you guys go through this all the time as well, but we are taxed a little bit differently sometimes than what our value of what we think our house is worth in the marketplace, right? So it's actual taxable evaluation. So $100,000 worth of taxable evaluation for a residence would be $90 a year under the proposed solution that we're talking about. Commercial property, same thing, $100,000 worth of valuation would be $100 a year for a tax increase on the property. And then agricultural, because I always have those farmers out there, right? We're looking at $1.05 per acre or $199 per quarter. Okay. And then with that, and I won't get through, there is some evaluation in regards to what they showed us. There's so many different ways of looking at how they're budgeting this, from how they borrow, but really what it comes down to right now is $100,000 worth of property evaluation. And then a potential sales tax impact of 0.75%. And in doing so with those two, that would provide enough funding to offset the cost of borrowing to this facility.
And maybe you mentioned this, but what was it, how many years? 1 year.
Yeah, and so we'll keep going here. I'm gonna make sure if there's any questions though, because these are a lot of numbers actually. And if after the meeting, you take a look at our estimate and say, what are you talking about? Because you're gonna look at square foot costs and you're gonna say, absolutely not. I will tell you that's what the cost of jail construction is going for right now. Undoubtedly. But I'm more than happy to talk to whoever we will, if we choose to move forward, into a referendum that would have to be explained to taxpayers, so.
So this financing estimated tax impact page that you're looking at is that to cover the debt? And how much debt are you contemplating in these numbers?
That would be the 42
The
million.
full 42.
Yeah, excuse me, that is not correct. You had general fund of roughly $5 million that would be subtracted from the 42 million to offset for the HVAC systems. They were looking at upgrading the courthouse, so that would be subtracted from that. So you'd be borrowing to roughly 37 million.
And that was planned because that system needs to be replaced anyway.
Yeah.
Right, regardless.
They were
Of what
actually
happens.
I think they were gonna actually do that work already. It's just we slowed that down because we weren't sure where this would end.
And what kind of interest rate are you using?
Can you recall?
It's a combination, there's the infrastructure loan fund that we would probably tap into, which is 2%. For up to 20 million, and then beyond that, there's other options
What we've been seeing in the general bond fund, I can talk to that,
Yes,
we've been seeing that 4.5%.
So currently, our infrastructure loan fund is limited to 20 million at the 2%. Now, there is that bill in legislature right now, so. If that was to get approved, that's a 40 million at 2%, so maybe we could tap into that.
Okay.
You know, I'm really hoping that's what would happen, but if we can't, if we're limited to that 20 million at 2%. Then we will have to go out with the general bond fund that Sid can explain.
Right. So it would become a two-part question that taxpayers or voters would have to vote on, and they would have to vote yes to both. They couldn't vote yes to one and say no to the other, because that isn't enough funding to allow you to borrow the dollars needed or to pay for the dollars needed to offset the obligation.
Can I just hold you up? You had a question back here, Jason?
I just want to make a comment on the HVAC unit for this project. Right now, the way the system is set up, the cooling for the administration building comes from the courthouse. With this project, the admin building, the sheriff's department, and the courthouse will now be underneath one heating and cooling system instead of the three we currently are running and having issues with. So it'll be an efficiency in the future to only have one instead of 3 sites to maintain.
Right.
Ernie, did you have a question as well?
Maybe you can't answer this, but I was just thinking, what ramification, we're talking property tax relief. Then you look at this and stuff, so what ramifications is it gonna have for us for generating property tax? Cause you're saying if you're residential at $900 annually for 100,000, well, what happens if the state decides to go away with property tax? Does this still stay in effect?
The state would have to work with you in order to help you commit to your funding, because that would already have been something that you borrowed for.
Okay.
Remember, it's $90, it's $90 a year for $100,000 worth of valuation, okay?
I just want to comment, the 42 million is scary, right? That's a big scary number. We see that, and the first time I saw it, it's an eye opener. But on the other hand, when you break it down and the way we have the financing set up, if I have to say on $100,000 home, am I willing to pay $90 more annually for safety? I am. Or on a quarter of land, am I willing to pay $199 more annually for safety? Yeah, I think that's the way we have to look at it, because if you look at just 42 million, it's like, I'm kind of shutting down here. But when I break it down to what is it going to cost me annually, it's not as bad as I expected. Ron?
Sid's gonna get to it, but we also studied what happens if we do nothing. So I'll let Sid get into that, but it's scary. It is. I'm setting you up here.
I didn't know if he was helping me or gonna throw a bus out there like that.
Actually, looking at these numbers, I thought it'd be hard. I really did. When you're talking 42 million, I didn't think.
That's why I think we just needed to pause and really think about that, because the numbers are not as bad as they sound.
Well, you have to take my bite size. If you don't, it's pretty hard to choke on a steak, right? We eat one bite at a time. That's kind of what we're doing here. And so how do we do that and understand the complexities of it? So we've talked about the true need, we've talked about the solution, we've talked about the cost, right? Now, as we move forward, let's just talk about some scenarios. And what I did, and we do this a lot with a lot of our county clients, is we say, okay, if you see this big giant number out there, what is it? You know, I don't want to spend that kind of money, and frankly, I don't blame you. But if we don't spend that money, what is that truly costing us? And so when we look at building new facilities, especially jails, we can control it by going to bond and either paying for it through a property tax or, in this scenario, a sales tax, correct? But as we start looking at the other scenario of doing nothing,
the cost of transportation, the cost of housing inmates elsewhere, the cost of just doing what you do today is gonna continue to increase, so we're gonna talk about those numbers, but where's that money come from? That money comes out of your general fund, right? That's a whole different game, and that's when we start looking at this a little bit differently and saying, we can only maximize our tax scenario up to a certain level, and after that, we have to start looking at cutting program, right? That's all we can do from a county board perspective, is when we look at our different departments, this is how much money we have to spend, what are we going to do, right? So let's look at the scenarios. So we talked about the cost of building a new facility, what the cost impact was to that, both from a dollars perspective and from a property taxes perspective. So the scenario that we have up in front of you is saying, listen, if we do nothing and continue to do what we do today, what does that mean to the county? What does that mean to taxpayers moving forward in the future? The first one is that at some point, because we've had quite a bit of backup with plumbing, we've had issues with the existing sheriff's department in jail, which a lot of us know. But that has continued to be a problem, and that is only going to continue to increase. So at some point, the Department of Corrections would come to you and say, listen, enough's enough. You've had a scenario here which you continue to have backed up plumbing, either you fix it, or we're going to close it down. Well, being that the plumbing and everything is within the concrete of the floor, that's gonna put you in a pretty tough spot, okay? So what does that mean? That means that if we don't have a facility, then we need to transport those inmates to other facilities, right? And so what I've included is some information from the sheriff in regards to different counties that are out there, how far away they are. He did a great job of saying, you know what, if we have to take somebody to this county, this is approximately how long they would be gone. He looked at the cost of the vehicles, the cost of gas, he put that all in that backup information that's included in the packet. So what I did is I took that and said, okay, based off of a 40 inmate total. And we can argue about 40 inmates because sometimes we may have 40, sometimes we may have 38, sometimes we may have 30, right? We use 40 because that's the basis of the study, and the study saying that we as a county are going to have the need of 40 beds. So I used that and I took the sheriff's information, the cost per inmate per year, which if you look at his backup data was roughly $37,000. And that would be the cost to transport them back and forth to a facility. And it, by the way, that was using transportation to Grand Forks. So as most of you know, that would be ideal, right? But the reality is that's not what the sheriff is dealing with. And he's not going to continue to deal with that because the problem we have with jails is all the counties are in the same boat, right? They don't have enough beds. They're getting a lot of requirements thrown at them, and it's causing a lot of pain. So we used, if you look at his study, or his information, we use Grand Forks. So if he's transporting further out there, his cost will only continue to increase. He's using $100 per bed because that's what they're paying for today. And so what I did is I took those costs today and I multiplied those by 40. So if you look in that little box that we've got off to the right, and we have that also in your backup data. Year one, approximately $1.4 million, right? Almost $1.5 million worth of cost. And what I did is said, okay, let's use the cost of inflation at 5% per year, because we're gonna have to pay our employees more. The gas could be potentially more, the cost of cars, vehicles, all of that, right? So we've used a 5% inflation factor over the 20-year period of time. And what you'll see at the bottom of that little box, when you add all that up, is roughly $49 million, okay? So if that was $10 million, if that was something else, we'd probably be having a little bit different discussion. But when we're looking at those dollars, that's quite a bit of money that's going out to other facilities. That's a lot of money that's being used to transport inmates to those facilities. And we'll get into the fact that those deputies aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? The sheriff's department cannot do what it needs to be doing. It's spending its day transporting inmates outside of county, right? that means our public safety is being sacrificed as well. And I can't put a dollar amount to that, but I guarantee you, somebody that's in need will put a dollar amount to that, right? Your response times are longer. We see this all the time. You're not going through anything that other counties are not going through as well, but we do start losing that response time, and your public safety is going to be sacrificed to some level. So I'm looking at that and saying, well, all right, well, that's pretty close to the same dollar. Right? So it's more, but it's pretty close to the same dollar amount. What I didn't think about was the cost of what we're going to do with these inmates. We still have to process them, right? We still have to potentially hold them overnight, because if you can't find a place, they gotta be held somewhere. So at some point, when the jail would close, what would the cost be to construct a new facility that, one, would have to hold the sheriff's department, and two, would have to hold some type of a holding facility? If you remember on the drawing, I had that purple area, that booking area. We used that square footage in our calculation and said, if we were going to build a facility at some point down the road, just to house people so that we could hold them overnight, transport them out, transport them back, hold them while they're waiting for court, transport them back, we need somewhere to do that. So I used the square footages in today's cost. I haven't added any inflation, haven't done any of that, but that's roughly $12.5 million. So if we had to shut the sheriff's department down, we had to transport people out of here, we still have to construct some type of facility that's going to house those inmates while we do court, process, and find a place for them. Yes.
I'm just curious about the existing facility in that scenario, could that be used for that process?
If it's got, I think if your infrastructure is deteriorated to that point of closure, I don't think you're going to be able to. I mean, you would have to dismantle, you would have to demolish it, which was originally in our proposal, and go back up, at least for the jail, at a minimum for the jail, you would have to bring that back up to that holding level.
So even as a processing center, you'd have to meet the jail standards.
When we originally got involved with this, because there were gonna be a number of counties at one point that we looked at potentially coming in and sharing a facility. And we were going to tour each and every one of them, and when they found out they still needed to have a holding type of facility, and they were gonna have to have work done there, it was difficult for them from a financial perspective.
Madam Chair, and I just actually joined the commission in December, and the first meeting was in January. So this was like the first thing that when the Samuels group was here, probably what was most eye-opening to me was the classification system and how things with the DOCR have changed, Department of Corrections, and the amount of classifications that Ron and they've gone through, from just the idea of females and how many more females are now in jail compared to how many years ago. And the reality is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but Grand Forks is not where females are housed. If they have to go, Rugby is usually where they're taken, correct, Ron? I don't wanna speak. Devil's Lake, you know, an area that is farther, if you will. Just the idea of, like, when they said putting people in cells, you just can't put them together, whether it's they classify different gender. I mean, we are where we are, right? Like, we have more females, we have more violent crime, we have more, and that they can't, so we have 16 beds that you may not, you may have one person in 8 different cells because you can't classify them differently. So they force that on us. It isn't an easy decision for any of them, but even just the idea when I started this, our vision was we'd have multiple counties that would partake in our jail, and that didn't work. But there are many jails that have closed around us. So when we look at from a revenue, we're looking, that's the goal, is that there are other places around us, Cavalier, certain counties that don't have jails anymore, but still have crime, still need places to go. So a 40-bed jail is not just Walsh County, right? It's that we can be, because correct me, Trail, I mean, we have people interested from Trail County in us building a jail because they can't get into Grand Forks County, they can't. So the need was really open, to my eyes, are really open to all that has changed in this, and then the future vision of what do we really need in this county. It isn't just what we have now.
Yeah, if you look at the 40 beds, and I would opposite that statement, we've designed 40 beds for Walsh County. Not for the Joneses, not for anybody else, right? So if you have capacity in those 40 beds or in 48 beds, where you have it, the sheriff can take on somebody from another county, that's revenue. But we've not designed it. We've designed it for your needs. And we have seen this happen, play out before, where other counties build extra beds because they're gonna make all this money from other counties. But then those counties build, and guess what happens? They have more beds than they have need, and now they're overstaffed. And so our goal is never to build more than you need. Our goal is to put you right sized. And if you have capacity to where we're receiving calls to house other inmates because you have capacity, then you take advantage of that, right? But if you don't, we want to make sure you're covered first.
How many people do we have elsewhere now?
I think 5 to 7, I think, right now.
The other thing, I think, if you really start looking at the crime activity of what's been going on in the, I'll say country. Violent crimes are, I mean, we do this every day, but violent crimes, this isn't just throwing somebody in a cell for overnight because they got caught drinking, right? This isn't that world anymore. And so when we're dealing with those violent crimes, that's putting a whole lot of pressure onto the sheriff's department and jail in regards to how they classify these individuals. Is that they can't put that same type of person into somebody because they did get a drunk driving, right? Or all that classification, and you have juvenile issues that are taking place. So when you look at that holding side of it, I use that as an example when I was looking at what you may have to do from a holding facility, and that is simply cells. That's just saying, Joe came in, he's going in that cell, right? Betty came in, she's going into that cell. It's how do we process, hold them temporary, so we can get them out of there into another county's facility.
So, just so I'm clear, and then I think it is, when you say the cost of existing jail and transporting is like 49 million, but that does not include the 12 million to build that new. So you're looking at 61 million.
No, it does not.
That's what I thought by looking at
that at the bottom was, because I don't know when that will take place. If you like, I could put it front and you can see it all, but what if it's 5 years from now? I don't have that crystal ball to say that you would be closed at some level. But what I do know is that you're gonna continue to transport more and more inmates out simply by requirement because of what's happening to the facility. And we see this a lot too, is they may have started at 16 beds and before you know it, they're down to 1 or 2 beds. And they're transporting everybody out. And the reason being is that from a classification and from basically the structure of the infrastructure of the facility has got to a point where you can't put inmates in a certain area of the jail. So that eliminates all those beds, and your beds count starts going down further and further and further until there's nothing there anymore. So I've got that, what's that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's why I put that at the bottom, so that you would see that this is just the cost of transportation. And at some point, we're going to be faced with another building issue.
Ron,
But it also doesn't cover the medical costs of our inmates. That's not in there either.
for me, it was an eye opener. The question was, what's the cost not to build? And the cost to not build exceeds the cost to build.
And we have counties that are in the same scenario you are, and they're saying, we're gonna build because we'd rather have our asset, so to speak. Because at the end of the 20 years, we still have the jail. And we design and construct facilities to last longer than 20 years. It's government, they should be designed to more of a 50-year standard, right? So there's life out past that 20 years. But we also have some clients that have a low enough count that it doesn't make sense. And this study helps us determine where it may make more sense to transport somebody else. But in this scenario, it does not appear to be that.
And if all our deputies are transporting people, the inmates elsewhere, what's happening in our county? You know, where's our safety level? So Ernie, I think you referred.
You said roughly it was what, 37,000 a year for inmates?
Yes.
The reason I'm bringing this up is I was listening to the radio show and Joel Hadkamp, and he had one of the senators that were talking about more local in jails funding jails out. And Joel said something around 40,000, but somebody come in and, I don't know where he was, Department of Corrections or whatever. They said the actual number to house an inmate for a year was 84,000. That's a lot different than your 37 or 40, Joe said, and it just totally shocked me. I don't know where they got the numbers, but it came from a reliable source. So maybe we're conservative even at the 37,000.
And it depends on if it's a county jail level. or-
Well, I suppose, yeah.
You know,
Maybe they're talking state too, who knows?
right?
Yeah.
But I will tell you, our experience has been, because we do both. The county jail is in a much more complex scenario than a prison. Because their classifications are much different than yours, right? So, the way they design and how they construct those types of facilities versus the facility you have to design and operate is much more complex. Because you are dealing with so many different facets.
Paul?
Okay, so it's, the cost to do nothing is the 49 million to transport plus the 12 million for the building.
Yeah, it's
So you assume they need a building to,
right.
because this facility won't do.
Yeah, we could arm wrestle over $12 million, right? It could be 6. Now you're $55 million.
Yeah.
Plus the medical, right? Ron, you said,
Plus staff, right? We're still gonna need staff in all of the facility.
So who can transport employees? Can your existing jailer staff transport employees?
Prison.
If
The whole part.
We know what you meant.
I'm sorry.
no, because they are not armed, sworn in police officers, so, no,
No, is your answer.
correct.
Okay. As far as the financing, you've done all this for 20 years. Is that a possibility to spread that out, bring the annual costs down, at 2%, that might be something to consider if we can do it.
Typically on these studies, because a general bond is usually 20 years, we keep we do the comparison. I've seen creative financing, where they do some short-term borrowing to finance the construction, and then they do a full bond scenario to pay for they call it the construction loan, and that gives them a couple of extra years to basically spread that out. But in our studies, we don't do that. Most counties don't do that. They go to their bond, they do what they need to do, and they come up with that financing solution.
Tanya, did you have something to add?
I was just gonna say that similar, those infrastructure, like the infrastructure loan fund is the one that we would have to access at 2%, and that limits you to 20 years. That's a 20-year bond. The only one that's different is the bonds that we would get via the sales tax funds. Those do go out to 30 years. And I believe that was used in the calculations. It was a 30-year bond to cover the portion that we would be funding with the sales tax increase.
We should
So,
clarify that, maybe, when, that we need to, we got that,
yeah,
okay.
So it is a 3/4 cent, 30-year.
yep, that's what I believe she used for those calculations, yep.
Okay, we can get clarification on that, then for the, if you're voting to go forward, that's something you guys wanna know.
Yeah.
Amy?
Well, I just wanted to add one more thing when it came to the building, you know, this area we're now in the process of looking at a new nursing home. And when you talk about a 50-year, you know, I look at buildings and I even think of hotels. When you think of a jail and you think of a nursing home, and you know, it isn't like me going into my business from 9 to 5, we function, we leave. Like these are 24-hour a day, and you just watch, like when you talk about the deterioration of a building, so 75, our current structure was built. It's just one of those where there has to be an endpoint, right, where you cannot keep functioning, so maybe you could replace. You know, the plumbing and the floor, but there does just come to a point when you are housing people 24 hours a day, and even I think of, you know, nursing home, generally, they're not violent. But if you have cells that are dealing with people who are not maybe respectful or property or whatever.
They don't wanna be there.
There's comes a point where that does in my mind go, you have to have a plan. So even if we build this one, is it a good idea for the commission to be saying for forward years? There, at some point, maybe it's 50 years, but don't wait 50 years, that that's the age of our jail. You know, we're getting there and now we're trying to figure this out.
Yeah, and you know, fixing plumbing is one thing, right? But when we reach a certain threshold of renovation, that's when your new code comes in. And when that new code comes in and you take a look at the size of your cells, and you start looking at all the different requirements that are required by the Department of Corrections, that's when your jail starts expanding. And when it does, it basically takes your existing jail and it throws it out because you're not gonna be able to meet those types of requirements with this existing space that you have. So that's really where we kind of ran into a dead end of looking at solutions with the existing jail, because the first thing you think about is, we put an addition on here, can we do this, can we do that? You can't do that when we start looking at where the code is compared to where it was.
Jenny,
A lot of the problems with the existing jail, we're grandfathered in at right now from the time it was built. And as soon as we open up the can of worms of remodeling, one part of that jail that is falling apart, we have to do them all. And that's where the problem comes in. Yeah, maybe we could fix the plumbing in the floor, but we're still with small cells, we don't have all the other recommendations that we have to follow. Like I said, if we open up that can of worms, we have to do it all. We just can't part it out.
Could you give me a few more examples? I'm sorry.
that was one of my concerns as well. And so when I questioned that, Ron had, he can explain it better, so I'm gonna let Ron have.
So it's called the standards, and we're grandfathered in on several of the standards. One of the standards is the space requirement. The requirement of having so much square face per prisoner. We are grandfathered in on that. Another big thing is that we're grandfathered in on the rec. We don't have to have a rec area for them now. We would need to have one if we were to put additions on there.
Okay.
Our current building does not have, the blueprint is not big enough to build for those events. So only thing we can do is go up, right? Another story on top of, which leads to doubling your staff. If you have them all on the same level, you can get by with a lot less staff. But another story on top of where we're at, you're pretty much doubling your staffing requirements. So we took that into account too.
Yeah, we did look at this puzzle quite, well, we've got 2 years looking at the puzzle, right? So we went through that pretty extensive. The last thing I wanted to mention is, you know, once you lock in your borrowing, right? It's kind of like buying a home, isn't it? You've locked in your mortgage rate. When we look at transporting inmates and we look at what the cost of housing is outside of the county, we don't have any control over that. So when it comes to looking at our budget, and I always go back to this, to the general fund, because that's where that money's coming out of. Do we want to continue to put pressure on there? Do we want to take it to the public and say, for a mortgage of this, we're gonna pay for this over the next 20 years. We can control that. Or do we want to do this? And that's why we present these scenarios to you, so that you understand that and you have as much data as you can before you say, yeah, I think it's a good idea to send this to referendum, or you know what, we're okay where we're at. And that's ultimately your decision.
And on that note, I'd just like to point out that if we were to do nothing, and it was costing us this much money to transport inmates, that type of thing. We're up against our 60 mils right now, which is where Ron's budget is all of. We're up against that 60 mils. Where's that money gonna come from? Well, we're gonna have to take it from that 60 mils. And Christy was doing some calculating and she said it would cost about 22 mils.
Yeah.
So that means we take 22 mils out of the 60 mils we've already been designating. We're down to just 38 mils to function with the rest of our operations within our general budget. So you're going from 60 down to 38. That's next to impossible,
Well, you were just before this meeting, you're talking about how to replace trucks.
right? Exactly.
And so it's kind of taking control over that, right? And giving it to the taxpayers and say we need help, and this is a solution that we have. If we go to the last step, and that's really our last slide, It's just kind of where you're at. And, some of you know that we've continued to work on this in the preparation that if you were to say yes, we would be prepared for you to move forward. If you say no, then we just stop what we're doing. But it's really a matter of reviewing the data, and as commissioners, I absolutely would do that. Take a look at all that stuff. If you've got questions about the numbers, how we came up with something, that's what we're here for. And then you have to determine if the referendum is something you really want to go for, and if you do, next steps would be to provide the language for how we're going to go to referendum, right? So there's 2 questions, and having bond council put together that information for you. We've talked to the committee about communication plans, which includes collateral for educating the public, meetings. We've went as far as setting up locations of when those would be. And if you choose to do that, then we're prepared to move that forward, but that becomes an entire plan based off of your vote. And if that vote is a yes, we move forward, we're prepared for that. If you vote no, we're prepared for that too, right? So that really concludes our study. I think it concludes our presentation. If you got more questions, we'll want to set up a time to discuss that further. I'm really happy to do so. If you can make it a little bit warmer, if I have to come back up.
Won't get much colder.
No, yeah. Well, between getting pulled over by the police department and dealing with the weather here.
See, now if we had to transport him, he would have been out of the county, he wouldn't have got picked up.
Paper grant works.
Oh.
Just return the level back. So anyhow, if you've got any other questions on here, if you don't, back to the.
Well, the one thing, just while they're posing the questions, because I know there's more questions,
Oh, sure.
I should have prefaced before you began, I should have said, there's no county that wants to say, we need to build a jail. You know, it's a difficult process to look at, but as elected officials, it's also our duty to make sure that we have a safe place to live in Walsh County, and we need to, continue to have safety in our county. We are at a point, the reason we started looking into the jail several years ago, I think back as far as 2020, I believe, is when we first started kind of talked about it. Denny, you were the initial one that brought it forward, commissioner that brought it forward, but at that time, we were, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were getting checked on quite closely by DLCR, and basically it was, we're gonna get shut down if we don't do something. We had to do something. Our jail, the way I look at it, our current jail is rotten from top to bottom. There's not much to salvage in there.
Well, I think a testament to your maintenance side of things too, because if you look at your inspection reports, they've been pretty decent. It's the conversations that are happening behind the scenes and saying, okay, when he shows up, we've got this all cleaned up, this is fixed.
Right.
At some point. Am I right?
No, you're right.
So because we did look at those, that's the first thing we looked at was the reports and saying, is it really that bad? And then going in and we got quite a bit of photography, we toured the facility. I need to make sure I get on a couple of things because I saw Shelley was on here too, and if I don't talk about it, I'll get in trouble. So we talked about the increases on the voting of the increase of on the referendum, the communications plan. She set up with direct mailers. The website is 80% of the way. Shelley, you can just shake your head at that.
I would say the website right now is about 75%.
We would set up the Facebook, and if you recall, that was having an avenue to get to people that may not be able to come to community meetings. They would be able to see that information, get some of the data that you've seen today and uploading all of that data. And of course, then you'd have the community meetings where we get out into the public and talk with taxpayers about their concerns about what it means, helping educate them so that if they vote yes or they vote no, they're fully educated to be able to do that, right? Nothing's worse than throwing it out there and just hoping that people either vote yes or vote no, or depending on how you feel. That's not what we're here to do. The goal is to educate those people so they can make a true decision.
I know it'll be asked when we go to these meetings, is there any, I guess we haven't had time to look at all the numbers, the annual cost to run this jail? I think the places that were built and they almost closed down because they couldn't afford the annual cost, and that scares me. It's gonna be, you know, but yet it's something that we gotta look into, make sure.
Yeah, we did look at that. The increase was at roughly 260,000, wasn't
Yes.
Over your budget now?
Taking into account the savings that we're gonna have
Yeah.
by having our own prisoners in our own facility, right? So we won't have that cost. A total of, I believe, about 260,000 over that, what we're paying now, yes.
Amy,
But when you look at efficiencies, I mean, Jason talked about, we talk about furnace, you talk about, you know, certain things, we're going from 3 to 1. There's gonna be other efficiencies that we're not gonna necessarily feel in your budget, but countywide, when we talk about mills and going through. And one thing that one of the first meetings, I really liked the communications plan when it was presented to us by Samuels very early on, I think one of your first meetings, but it was, the focus was educating, so that you really, we do get that to the people, that, and that's one of the questions I maybe have is the timing of the referendum, you know, to be sure that we do get out there and get in front of everyone. I felt very confident after the presentation that that the Samuels Group understood that, you know, even having something on the website where people could type in their parcel number to see their tax burden or where they were, so they really could get that personal information to feel educated and then decide. But is there a timeframe when recommendation from the referendum, depending on?
Well, the committee had looked at, it was, again, these are dates that we've looked at and established based off of if there was a yes vote. And we were saying, we were looking at May 13th, 2025 vote. And what we backed off of that, we brought it back up to today's world, right? Because we would have, everything from letters that go out, because this would be vote by mail, how that one tax. But it really comes down to about February 4th, right around there, February 7th, that we really need some action. And the reason being is that we have all those other things that have to fall into place in order for us to get the information to taxpayers. The goal was to get that out to them and then right away be able to have a meeting so they understood what the heck it was that they were, you know, gonna vote for before they finally received their ballot. So there was a process. If we don't meet that date, then that date just is going to push.
my recommendation would be that we take the information home. You know, study it, review it, give everyone some time to absorb all this. And then, I guess I'm looking for input from the commissioners, I would like to have a vote by February 4th, by our next meeting. We could do sooner, we could call special meeting and do sooner if we could work it out with everyone's schedule, but if February 4th is acceptable, I believe that's our next meeting date.
Or if you need a special meeting to talk about them, if you take it home, you know, like I got a bunch more questions.
questions.
You wanna have, you know, we can zoom in and have a special meeting with you if you would like. To answer any additional questions that might come up after you review the data, so that if you are going to vote on the 4th, or somewhere in that area, you've had those questions answered for you.
So what would you guys like? Do you have more questions today? Anyone have more questions?
I do, I was wondering, we were talking about standards that you're not meeting. You mentioned plumbing, small cells, and no rec areas. Is there anything else you can think of?
I mean, lighting doesn't matter.
Yeah, lighting's been a big issue too, yes. The amount of light in each cell, yes, we've been struggling with that.
Outdoor fresh air, was the one I think we're.
That's one we're grandfathered in right now, yes.
I guess I would stress. Go over and tour the jail.
I did,
Okay,
I've already been there.
every one of us should go through that jail. And get a hands-on as to where we're at.
And if you try to fix one of these, you have to fix them,
Yeah.
you have to bring it into standard.
Major repairs, you have to bring everything back up to standards.
Yeah.
You have, we grandfather in for little bitty things like you can add another light here or something like that, but. We tried adding more and more lights and it's just, every year we just kind of sweep by with the lighting.
Even naturally.
Yes, and we're very down on the natural light requirement too.
Yeah.
Well, and I have concerns that we don't have enough room in our jail. So are we sending everybody to jail that needs to be in jail, or are we having to release them on an ankle bracelet, you know, and let them go home? I mean, is that what we want in our communities? That to me is a safety concern.
You know, we're seeing a lot more of that happening to a point where the county can't do it anymore. And that's where we see a lot of these facilities get constructed,
Mhm.
but yeah.
I guess I would like to stress that scenario of transporting prisoners is the best case scenario to Grand Forks. We've had prisoners as far as Williston. And it's, that one we had out there in Williston, 2 days, we had to go get her.
She was we had her for like 3 months, she was transported, I think 8 to 10 times, while we had her, including several to the state hospital, so. She was a problem from the minute we picked her up and, facilities don't wanna handle problem people, they got enough of their own, so when we're a guest. In their facility, they're gonna say, take her down the road because we got enough to put up with our own, so. You overstayed your welcome. Correct, yeah, and that's what we did, and we were on the road a lot with her.
And is that something Kelly or someone has said that they have a right for hearings, or they can choose to be in person versus Zoom? Like if they say they want to be in person for their hearings, we have to get them and put them in, like they can. Is that correct? I heard that right?
Because a lot of times then their attorney's not present and they have the right to be present with their attorney. They, in fact, every hearing we have by Zoom, the judge has to take a waiver of that right for that attorney to be present. And that attorney's gonna be here. He's not gonna be, that attorney's not gonna be driving to them. They're gonna need to come to us.
Well,
And lost my, sorry, I had a
okay.
question.
Well, that's fine. Just on that note, Ron's also given us examples of when his deputies have been transporting a prisoner. And another county says they'll take them and they get almost to that county and then they get a call and they say, oh, wait, changed our mind, guess we're not gonna take them. So here you have a deputy with the prisoner out on the road and they're trying to find another jail to take them to, probably in the middle of the night. I mean, yes, Paul.
I remembered my question, so your estimates are all based on a facility that you think moving forward that Walsh County is going to need. So you're not anticipating housing other county employees or other county.
Prisoners.
Not employees.
Can I take that one?
But you could, which would add revenue.
We are building for our needs, not other counties. But will we be a good neighbor and take other people's prisoners? Absolutely.
Which would help your revenues.
Correct.
So, but you're in control of that, then you can determine when these people come and when.
We can be the ones that say, take your prisoner and hit the road.
Right.
So that is some potential for some
Yes,
cash flow.
correct.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but we're tied to state rates, right? State or federal rates per bed?
Well, our rates have been, with contracts, yes. We can charge as much as the market will allow, right? But, we are at $100 a bed right now. Per day, yes.
What is the percentage that go to Grand Forks, Ron? What
That
would you?
very 5% or less.
They don't have room.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is that's used, but that's a low number as
It
far
is
as when you're
very,
talking.
very
about-
low number.
Yeah, I would say, but we wanna be somewhat conservative in our.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
And just,
Go ahead.
well, just to add to, as far as the, I know there's been something in the press about the Grand Forks expansion of the jail. that would not help our problem, is my understanding. That's just for DOCR inmates or Grand Forks themselves. So that whole expansion project in Grand Forks would not help us in the least, is my understanding.
That's correct, Kelly, it just further shows the problem of the overcrowding in our county jail. And the reason why we're not able to get into other jails that contract our prisoners with other jails, because we've tried that area too. They're able to take state prisoners and get a higher rate than us, so.
Paul,
The. I don't know. The rate that you're charging is set in state law?
No. No, it is not.
Only by contract, correct?
Only by contract, yes.
I think what Denny was referring to maybe was state or federal contracts, you're locked into
Yeah.
those rates. If we entered into a contract to hold state or federal prisoners, we're locked into those rates.
Those are optional contracts.
Correct, like we would,
We've never had the room to enter into any of those contracts, so we do not have any contracts with anybody.
Okay, and I entered this process late in the game. And I know in the beginning there was talk with 2 or 3 other counties and they have shown no interest.
It was 5 in the counties, I think.
Okay, and so what do they do?
They're hoping to build, so
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
for us to build.
They're doing what we do with our females right now. They play the jail lottery and see where they can bring their prisoners.
So they're taking all this out of their general fund, like you.
But they're only, some of them, I think we're at like 3 people, 4
Yeah.
people.
Right.
So if you were to put that same scenario and plug it into what we're talking about, it's probably more efficient for them to play a gamble versus building a new facility for 3 or 4
Right.
people. So that's the problem that they were running into.
Especially when they know we're considering, but
Well, but take that completely out. If I told you that it was gonna cost you $40 million to build a new facility. And it cost you $10 million to transport them out as a solution. My recommendation to you would be not to build a $40 million jail, right? So in their scenarios, they've got such a low population count that it makes more sense in that scenario. You only got 3 people, you're not building a building to handle that. So I think that's what we found with a lot of them early on.
Denny,
The other thing that, I don't know how you put a value on, but you have to consider the psychological impact that it has on our attorneys and our officers. And I was talking with an HP that, he said, we just get tired of catch and release the same people.
Right.
Pretty soon they're gonna figure out, well, what's that? They don't have a jail, what can they do? And that's not good.
I don't know much about any of this, but I'm confused why we have this population problem, the county next door doesn't.
Well, county's next door. Pemmican County has their own jail, currently runs their own jail. So, they have a similar size jail as we do now.
Is that full?
They're mostly full, yes.
Okay.
Cavalier County, they were lucky to have 1 or 2 prisoners at a time. So it makes more sense for them to contract out.
Okay.
Those were the counties that we looked at, Cavalier County, Nelson County, Towner County, Trail County, some of the ones that had it. Would it go, was Ramsey?
Kevin was the 5th one, thank you, that was not off there, yeah.
So those were the counties that we approached, the ones that had a need, that didn't have a jail.
Is Pembina County's jail like ours grandfathered into all these things?
Pemmican County's got a much newer jail than we have. It has its own issues, but it is, I would say, probably in the 80s or 90s that it was built.
But
So, they don't have a lot of the issues that we currently have. So we thought it would be a natural, joint venture, but they decided, that wasn't anything they were interested in. It was very hard to get people to put money towards a jail that wasn't gonna be built in their county, right? Hard time for their taxpayers to say, we're gonna give you $10 million to build a jail that's not in our county. And I understand that, so we decided, after we went that route, we decided that wasn't the route to go. Let's build for our needs, and then if we're able to help our neighbors, we'll do that. So that's the importance of that jail study with Tom, I'll be honest, we studied the heck out of size and grouping categories and we spent a lot of time on that, so.
I think we'll spend months from when we started.
Right.
And I didn't take from being in those initial meetings, there wasn't interest, it was just not committal. I mean, that we had quite a few people come from other counties that were aware of the need, like I brought up Trail before, that talked about that they see and that they would be interested in contracting beds. But when they went through the studies with them to kind of commit the money, like Ron said, in the end, that was a no. But from a perspective of people seeing it in other counties, I felt that was
A lot of
there.
interest to bring their prisoners to our jail, no interest to
Yeah.
give us money to build the jail.
But we're not building a jail.
Right.
Correct.
No, that we were recommended. Yeah, that's where it became a dead end.
Todd,
I understand the valuation part of the financing of it, what I'm unclear of is, on top of that, you request a 3/4 cent sales tax increase for 20 years.
It's a two-part question, so the first question will be for general tax levy. And the other one would be the sales tax increase, so it's a two-part, you're right, it'd be both.
The sales tax is 30 years, I understand.
Correct,
That's 30.
correct.
and we would need a yes vote on both those questions.
Yes.
Do you want me to speak to that a little bit?
Yes,
Explain
please.
that maybe briefly. So when we were first exploring this, the finance committee was first exploring this piece of it. If we were to look at simply funding it strictly with property tax increases, we were all kind of in agreement that that was gonna be too much of a burden to the property tax, to property owners in Walsh County. And so that's where we looked at doing a two-part approach, looking at a property tax increase through bonds and through an increase to our general fund. That's how we would have to achieve that. In order to repay those bonds, we would need to increase our general fund levy, our cap. From where it is right now, we would have to bump it up, and then we would also apply a sales tax. That sales tax, those bonds would be repaid over the course of 30 years. The property tax bonds are 20-year bonds. So, that's how we would, it's a two-part approach in order to keep the property tax impact more palatable. And then the sales tax is spread out to anyone doing business in Walsh County.
Paul,
Do you know what percentage of the total project is being covered by property tax versus sales tax?
I don't have the percentage off of my top of my head, but I have those numbers and I can certainly share them. I wanna say 11 point. If you give me just a second, I can try to give you a little bit more information. 11.19 million is gonna be funded by the sales tax. So you can do the math, I guess, there, right?
Okay.
Roughly
That's
30.
good.
Okay, yeah,
Did that include the initial cash outlay from the general fund?
correct.
Yep.
Yep, that includes that 5 million that we would, yep. And with that, I should clarify that because, you know, Ron talked about the fact that it's, or Ernie brought it up, we're gonna have increased operating costs with this because we have to increase our staff, things like that. So that was factored into the increase that we would need for the general fund. You know, we factored that in. How much do we need to increase our general fund mill levy cap in order to make sure we have the funds to operate this facility? So.
Jason,
I just want to make one more clarification on the existing law enforcement center building with the sheriff's office and the jail. We've heard about how we have the issues with the jail portion. The sewer also runs through the sheriff's department, so those sewer issues will follow over to the sheriff's department. In the last 2 years, I've been on the roof of the sheriff's department 5 times for roof issue. We've had one mold remediation project which went, we took over $15,000. So it's not just the sewer system that is an issue with the building. We're gonna have a roof issue. We've been holding all those things off too, so I just wanna make sure that everybody's in the clear and aware of that one. It's not just because it's the bottom that's running out. It's we had HVAC issues. And it's an everything issue with the building. The whole thing is to the point where they designed, you heard it today, they designed these buildings for 50 years.
25 years.
25
The initial
Right.
design on that, if I remember right,
Yeah,
and here we are 50 years into it.
Right.
So.
so
We've gotten our money's worth out of it.
We have. Yeah.
How much money do you stick in an old car? Anything with the building, where do you stop?
Since it's a labor loan.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for me today? Well, let me know if you need me for a special meeting
will.
or what you would like from us. And we'll definitely attend that and answer any questions. Also, feel free to reach out to any of us at any time. We'll answer anything that you need.
Wonderful. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Sid. Appreciate your
Thanks for having us
presentation.
back.
Very good. Okay, well, Ron up next. Okay.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm here on behalf of the jail committee. I'd like to go back a little bit further from where Sid started. Because this has really been a long process for us. We didn't just start a month ago or 2 months ago. We actually started in 2020. COVID slowed us down a little bit, but we actually started this process in 2020. Because of the needs of our building and the deterioration of our building. And a lot of credit to Denny for spearheading some of this. We needed to look ahead on what we were gonna do. Denny and I went to Grand Forks. We met with their jail administrator. We tried to contract our prisoners with them. On 2 different occasions, we went down there. They denied us both times because of their own space requirements, and let's be honest, they can make more money on the Fed prisoners than they will on ours. So they denied us. So what do we do then? We went back and formed a committee and started really digging into this process. This process has been very thorough. In fact, I've been meeting with Shelley about getting some of the things together in the event that you guys vote yes on what happens next, getting the website ready, getting some of that stuff taken care of. And the committee's we've been meeting a lot of times weekly on trying to figure this out. We did pare down our committee when we went through the space requirements and all the jail study stuff, because let's be quite honest, as Amy can attest, the space requirements and all that stuff, it probably wasn't the most. The topic wasn't probably anybody wanted to get in on, so but we've been working a long time on that. We looked at the other sites, the 5 other sites, including our current site. We went and toured other jails, including the one out of state. So we've worked long and hard on trying to develop a plan. And we came to the conclusion that we need to bring some experts in, and that's when you guys voted in 2022, March 18th of 2022, to bring the Samuels Group on board, and to get us, and that really got us on track, gave us some experts. And we worked through the process. A 5-year process, so we've been very thorough. We consulted multiple experts and we developed a plan. But I think lost in some of this is that public safety needs to remain a priority here. And with this plan, I think that does that. This accomplishes that. We've had to secure adequate placement for our people, which, like you said, involves a deputy in the middle of the night making phone calls to every jail that is taking past prisoners. We do the roulette wheel and spin it and hope that it's one close, but we don't know, because it's all depends on their availability, how full they are. All our county jails are in North Dakota have a space problem, and you look at Grand Forks, you look at Fargo's having to take their prisoners over to Moorhead to house them over there. So it isn't that we haven't tried to maybe contract our prisoners with other people, because we have. When we're transporting, those costs come directly out of our budget, right? But when we're not here, when deputies on the road, that doesn't make us any safer as a county when we're having our deputies transporting throughout the state. So we need to take that into account. So it is the committee's recommendation is that we move forward with this project, and that the commission adopt a resolution to move this project to a referendum. And I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Paul had one.
How does Fargo transport to Moorhead? I thought you couldn't go across state.
That's probably have to be a Kelly question, because I don't know how they're doing it without having extradition issues, so I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I don't know exactly how they're doing it. Maybe they have, them sign a waiver of extradition perhaps before they transport them, or at least give them the option of signing one. A lot of times they'll make it a condition, like when we do bond hearings, we usually make a condition of their bond that they'll waive extradition should they be picked up in another state. Judge typically puts that in as, so they're agreeing to that bond condition as a condition of their release. I'm not exactly sure without researching or talking to somebody there exactly how they're doing that. I know that there's probably something in place for that to happen, because you end up having a lot of those issues. You probably in other states, or when you have two major cities like that, there's probably some sort of interstate compact also that goes along, some sort of statute that allows for something like that to happen.
So is it fair to say that even if that were to happen, it's not gonna change your transportation costs moving forward if you didn't have a jail? Whether you're transporting them to Devil's Lake or to Thief River, for example.
I don't think it changes it that much, no.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ron? Ron, you've been very thorough. Sid was very thorough. I appreciate all the work that the jail committee has done on behalf of the commission. We know that this has not been a subject that has been taken lightly. Many hours have been put into preparing for this moment. And that's all additional work on everyone's plate. So just on the behalf of the commission, I'd like to thank everyone from the bottom of our hearts that you are that concerned about the safety of our citizens in our county. So we appreciate that you brought this to us. We may need some time before we move it to a vote, unless, let me get a feel from the commissioners. would you guys like some time to study this, or do you feel you're ready to move it to a vote? What would you like to do? I mean, Paul, I know you're the newest, but we also, a lot of us have taken the new information today, so.
I will let him decide, but I just feel with Paul being so new, to the commission that, you know, I've had 2 years of this. Everyone else has, we've had a lot more time, we've been exposed to a lot more, so I really think we need to be sure that Commissioner Hodek is ready and feels comfortable proceeding before we go to a vote.
I feel the same way. I haven't seen a lot of these numbers either, and I'm not saying I need a lot. If the guy wants a special meeting or something next week to move it on, I'm fine with it.
Okay,
I
Ron,
would like to offer, that everyone come over and tour the law enforcement center and jail again. If, you have any questions about the condition of our building, be more than willing to show you around the building, the jail and the law enforcement center. If that helps in any way.
I think I would like some time, this paints a pretty bleak picture.
okay, would you guys, we have a couple options then, do we want to try to schedule a special meeting to keep this moving along, or like Sid said, February 4th? As long as we have maybe a decision by February 4th at our next meeting, but I'm just wondering, you know, like how much time we're gonna need, are there going to be a lot of questions, or?
I'm fine with special meeting if that's what everybody wants to do. I'm fine with doing it on the 4th or the 3rd, whatever day we meet that week, but I,
Just would like some time.
Yeah.
I agree.
there's 2 options here, and either one of them is very good. I should say they're both very expensive.
The third, that works, or do you wanna have it done during the commission meeting, or what do you wanna do? I don't know.
Well, February 4th is our commission meeting,
Right.
right?
I don't feel that the 3rd helps
No,
anymore.
no.
If we were gonna do special meeting, I feel like next week, but I think that
Yep.
needs to be a decision if you feel you need
I would be fine with that if that's what you want to do.
for next week.
So I'm unavailable most of next week, except Monday. I could do Monday morning. That's the, geez, I can't read from here, January 27th. I would be able to do Monday morning, January 27th, if you guys wanted to hold a special meeting for this.
Yeah, it would have to be, I mean, for me, ideally, between 8 or 9, you know, 9, I start seeing patients at 9, so.
Well, the weekend work for me, 27th will work for me.
Jenny, would that work for you? Sid? Would we be able to have you on call, or is that a bad time for you?
If I would say I'd have to absolutely be done, I could call them earlier, the better for me on that day, so.
Okay, so could we do an 8 AM or 8:15?
That's fine.
Does 8 work for you?
Yes.
That's, she has to get here to get all the technology up and running, so.
Well, we won't have the screen, so we're good.
Okay.
8 AM.
So we'll just go over the documents that we presented.
Yeah, maybe just have them available. Yeah.
In case we have some questions, we can scroll on ours and ask
It'll be
you.
on the phone, yeah.
And I think we all have your information. I would assume you would appreciate if there were any questions, or if we could get them to you ahead of time, you know, before
Yeah, or I'll take calls,
that.
absolutely.
8 AM then?
January 27th at 8 AM. And then you, Sid, will you just be joining via Zoom?
Yeah, I'll be enjoying that in about 80-degree weather, so.
Oh.
No, it's sympathy.
Sorry,
You know,
I think my wife and dogs would not be very happy.
Well, sorry, we're going to interrupt, but,
No, that's okay.
okay. All right, Monday, January 27th, 8 AM, we will have a special meeting to conduct a vote on the jail proposal.
So do you want to send a Zoom or, Teams or?
Yep, I'll create
phone
one.
number? I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yep, I'll create one, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you bet.
Thank you, everyone, for all the time you've spent on this, and I'm sure there's many hours that we don't see, so.
Lots and lots of,
Yeah.
so yes, again, thank you everyone that has been involved. It was definitely a team effort. Okay. We can move on to Christie.
Should I start with that March 4th and then just my addition?
Yeah, that's fine. Why don't we just give it a minute?
Yes.
Give it lots of stuff in here, so we can hear.
Absolutely. So we'll make the first one, we've already decided. We'll need it.
Did he?
Or unless there's something that's special that's needed. That's the thing, maybe we should mark the event.
But we didn't decide if we were gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what was on the date.
It won't be on the 18th, but there might be one
If
scheduled.
we needed one, we were gonna schedule one. We would.
Okay, but not the,
Not the 18th.
okay,
Thank you.
So this is still
Thank you
showing,
for you.
Jason is still sharing his screen. Do you think I mean, it doesn't hurt, but do you think?
no, I don't think we need it.
Todd, do you have any questions that you think we should bring forth to back there?
No, I
I'm better now, Christine? Yes,
kind of
yes.
calculate
Need it.
sales tax figures for like, I know it just doesn't affect Park River and Grafton, but just like where they're at and one another.
Yeah.
3/4 built it, I think that'll put Grafton close to 9, and I think it'll put Park River like 8.5.
Yeah.
I think Grafton's 8 now.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah, so, I don't know.
Okay, Christie.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the first thing on my agenda is the March 4th date. I will not be here, so I am curious if you guys are interested in having the meeting on March 3rd, or if you guys would rather keep it on March 4th and Kelsey would just run the meeting.
I'll add to that, I won't be here the 4th either, I got school. I can't miss it, so, and that's on the computer, you know, so I can't watch both of them, so.
Sure.
In the morning, so whether you have it or not, I won't participate on the 4th.
But the 3rd would work.
3rd would work for me. The 5th won't, cause I got school that day too, so.
3rd works for me.
I can make it work.
Yeah, I can make it.
I can make the 3rd work as
Can
well.
you? Thanks, everybody.
So we will plan on having the meeting on March 3rd.
Okay.
Instead of the 4th.
So with that, can I add? I will not be here March 18th, the following meeting. I could do March 17th, but I am not the week of March 18th after that, so.
And the only thing I told Christie on the Mondays is I will be gone, I'll have to leave by like 11:30 on those days, so if we do move them to Mondays, I
I'll
have.
make them short.
I'm there. Okay.
I'm thinking I'm going to this, which would put me out on the 18th.
Right, and the 18th we did,
This is March.
Yeah, we're talking March 18th.
Oh.
Sorry, I jumped to March 18th.
Yeah, so February 18th, we will not have a meeting. Might schedule another one depending on the needs of the departments. For a second meeting in February. So then March 3rd, we will have a meeting, and then March 17th is, I believe, President's Day, isn't it?
It is St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's Day, President's Day. is in
Okay,
February.
okay, perfect. Okay, I knew there was the 17th of.
We can wear
Okay.
green.
Yeah. So are we looking to switch to March 17th also?
I mean, I'm the only one right now that would probably be gone, and I don't know if I might be able to connect part of it to Zoom, but, Amy I would need you to conduct the meeting, or no, Ernie, I need you to, sorry about that, oops. Excuse my memory, Ernie, I need you.
That's okay, I'm getting old and corner.
So I mean, I hate to switch the meeting just for one person, but just letting you know, I can't be here the 18th, so.
Doesn't matter to me if everybody wants to switch.
To the 7th, that would be fun.
You guys are all fine with the 17th?
I am.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
am too.
Okay, then we'll go March 17th. Denny, that's good for you too?
Yeah.
If we have, how soon will we know if we have another February meeting? For me, the sooner the better.
Yeah.
If we're gonna need it.
So our meeting is the February 4th, and so it would just be if any of the departments had anything come up.
Okay.
After that,
So
so,
the 18th, we can't have it.
right,
And how long you guys gonna be in Bismarck?
Till the 19th.
then
Just 2 days.
It, you know, I guess my only request, we've done this before, but if we had to have a meeting, well, Like the 25th, I guess, I'm open on that. Tuesday
February,
if we
you're
had
saying
to.
now?
Yeah, but that would be my only request or an evening, you know, we had to add one, is what I'm saying, in February if we're not having the
I'm gonna be
18th.
gone the 17th to the 25th.
25th to 26th, I got school, I got 4 days of it,
I think at this point we should
gotta do it.
cancel,
Cancel.
and then department heads know up front, and things will just have to wait. I mean, I don't like to cancel meetings, but I just don't know that we can. If we try to bump it off a week, then you're getting so close to your
Next
next meeting anyways, that
Yeah.
wouldn't it just be easier to wait?
Exactly, and that's what I was thinking. It's like, well, then do we instead have a meeting at the last week of February and not do the March 3rd?
And I had all my meetings planned for the whole year, so
Yeah.
I would prefer we not be switching too much around if we
Yeah.
can help it.
Too much.
Exactly. So it's a difference of a week. It's a short period, you know, so.
Right, at least February is a short month, so is everyone fine if we just cancel the February 18th meeting? We will not reschedule it. Okay, so our meeting dates then are February 4th, Monday, March 3rd, and Monday, March 17th.
Monday, March 3rd.
Yeah, and 17th, yeah, Mondays.
Mondays in March.
Yeah.
There you go.
And all at 9,
Oh, yeah. It's time of
except
day.
for next week.
The jail meeting.
The 8 AM is next
8
week,
a.m.
yes.
Okay, we can go on. Here, other agenda items, we had, bill on demand.
Yeah, so I am coming again this year, asking for a motion to allow me to pay bills on demand as needed in between commission meetings. From time to time, we have bills that are showing up late or not in the timeframe to present before we pay them. So I was wondering if I could get a motion to allow us to pay bills as we see fit.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? Bill, take roll. Denny,
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Paul?
yes.
Ernie?
Yes.
Myself, yes, motion carries.
Thank you. And the next is just an update on the court facility improvement grant that Judge Whalen and Deb was here. I think it was the end of December, the last meeting in December. They were awarded, they found out they were awarded the grant. So out of $600,000 that was available, their unit got $270,000.
Wow.
So they got theirs approved in full. There were some counties that were not in full, so we will have that percentage. So that was pretty excited about that. She wanted me to let you guys know about that. Yeah. And then the last is we conducted interviews last Thursday. And with 2 open positions, we felt very comfortable offering the deputy auditor 2 position to Anna Thompson from Grafton. Paul.
Oh, and Jill's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we're very excited. She might start next week, but she was very excited to get started, so it might be February 1st, you know, she's anxious to start, so we haven't nailed down a date, but that was that. And then the deputy treasurer 2 position, we haven't offered it at this point, but that is very, very, I mean, we're getting to that point where we will be offering that, so yeah, things are looking up, so.
Good.
Yeah, yes, so I'm excited, Anna seems like she'll be a great addition, with all of the strategic planning and, you know, all of the numbers in that office. I think she's gonna be fantastic, so, I wasn't really expecting to hire an auditor 2 position, so it was a very, very good surprise. It seemed like she was, then she'll be a great fit for that, so.
Yeah, very pleasant.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
Yeah.
So I think we got a good one.
Yeah. That's that.
Okay, anything else?
Glad we got the TV.
Yes, I just wish the PowerPoint would have worked up there. But I think it'll be nice for the
Yep.
future once we can get it all over, oh, well, because I liked, it was nice up there seeing it. And then when we kind of lost, when the speed froze back to the paper.
We're gonna have to get swivel chairs for everybody so they can turn around.
Yeah, turn around and see it, yeah. No, that's a nice addition, so. Okay, anything else?